Now, with that being said, does anybody have any measurements of the globe that they'd like to present? You have a wide open audience, willing participants, 2 live streams going on. We got 2 YouTubes, further streamed to Rumble, X, and probably Spotify too. So hats off to everybody out there who's tried and failed to prove that the Earth's a globe. Keep trying because it's given us great content. I wonder where that guy knowledge went.
It's 2026, and I still haven't heard of a curving level tool.
Yeah, how'd that even look like? I mean, would it look flat?
We had a guy in here earlier saying that gravity bends the light, which makes the globe look flat.
Holy shit.
Right? So yeah, so gravity like makes it curved and then makes it also appear flat at the same time. It's crazy.
I love it when they bring their own mental illness in here. Like, it's not even the mental illness that we're fighting against primarily. We're fighting against subjective mental illness instead of, mass formation psychosis mental illness. But I can see the logic, right? I mean,
Pull
if
the light back down,
gravity curves the surface of the Earth and it's curving the atmospheric air masses. Well, that's funny. Well, I guess we'll just apply our iconal ray equation to a curving medium, and we'll call it a day.
It's insane. It's very disappointing globe arguments in here today. Even, one guy even claimed to be a physicist, and he was just a big letdown.
Those are my favorites, honestly. The ones that claim to be pilots, claim to be physicists, claim to be engineers. Meanwhile, we're actually trying to reach the real academics, the real scholars, the real applied physics dorks out there. We love you guys. Come in here, chat with us.
You can tell when they are legit as well. Like, before I went to bed last night, there was a final year college kid. He was doing his well, not a kid, but he was doing his final year of his master's in physics. And he just asked genuine questions, and we had a good conversation, and he was respectful. And at the end, he said he was going to look into some of the videos from Dr. John D. So,
perfect.
It's just a shame these types of people are so rare.
Yeah, these are the Path A people in the framework we have.
Yeah, and it was a pleasure explaining everything to this guy because, he got everything the first time.
Right, because these people are either those who have created the models that they work with and therefore understand the limitations and all the choices that went into it, all of the competing variables and all the concessions that had to be made. They're the Path A people on the chart on the side there. They understand that their models are representations, however flawed they may be. They may be aware of some of the flaws, most of the flaws, maybe all of the flaws. And so they'll engage us from that standpoint, knowing that the globe is itself a model, a mental construct. They'll engage us with curiosity and humility. There are also people who are adopters of the model who understand too its limitations, its constraints. And people that seem to be closest to the subject that we're debating here seem to be less sure of the globe than all the midwits out there and wannabe professionals in these various technical areas who think they have it all figured out. It's really interesting to watch. Yep, the Path A people are the heroes of the cosmology that is accepted right now in mainstream science. And you know what? When we talk to those people and when you listen to their lectures, you find out very quickly that, yes, they know that this is just an interpretive framework. They're more open to being wrong than the zealots who follow them. And that's usually the case in any religion, if I might add. Zealous followers tend to be more consumed with identity and judgment over this than the ones that they're following. They're emulators, and they're emulating a reification of the leader that they've built up into their mind, which is not true itself. It's just fantastic psychology to witness, even sociology. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, like the chart depicts here, we've got the Path A people, the builders and the conscious adopters. And then flowing out of that, or flowing hopefully into it sometime, flowing from that are the Path B people, the rabid defenders of the models, the so-called scientific models, super emotionally invested into the model. And they see challenges to the model as threats, and even personal threats to their identity, the world that they've built up in their minds that they take comfort in, and the belief that the rest of society has to believe the same way as them. When that's challenged, their herd mentality is also challenged. And whenever they're confronted with the problem, well, they just ad hoc patch the model. They ad hoc patch the model. They rarely check the premises, the fundamentals that went into the model's concept in the first place. And they just start patching a flawed cosmology again and again. You get the globrrrs. And you also get the model building flat earthers that do this again and again and again too. It becomes a battle royale of two people that have reified concepts into reality so much with such conviction that they're unwilling to give it up because of a sunk emotional and sometimes spiritual cost. And then you got the Path C people. These are the drones, the listless followers, low effort trolls. They defer to the experts, to society. Academia figured it out. Why should you question all the science? I don't question the science. I'm on the side of science. Science agrees with me. I agree with science. Low effort, low curiosity. They also conflate the model with reality. They reify in a very passive manner, unlike the Path B people who put effort and energy into it. They just prefer to imagine and dream. And these people probably represent 80%, like the vast majority of people out there, honestly. They're easily propagandized. And they're often trolls or disruptors. I mean, many of them just don't really care about this topic, and they come into this server and they start audio bombing or they do stupid shit. Fine. I mean, yeah, you guys are Path C, low effort trolls. And sometimes, if with enough energy, Path C people can become Path B people or Path A people. Maybe I need to update this chart. Path C people who want to cling to their soft notions of consensus end up becoming Path B people when they're unwilling to give up their worldviews. And in order to get back to Path A, to where the builders and the adopters are, the progenitors even, you have to exercise academic humility. You have to be willing to be completely wrong about everything. And it's okay if you are. We got to where we are because we became Path A. We started to understand that the globe is a conceptual model. We understand how it was created out of people's imaginations, how they conceived of stars to work in the sky. A very limited and subjective interpretation, nevertheless. So when you build a mathematical sphere out of the sky and you start mapping flat Earth into it, in order to get a topology that matches the curving surface in the sky, you have to have a curving surface on the ground. So therefore, the ground also must be curving. So we got a terrestrial sphere embedded within a celestial sphere. And now you got to say, well, that's not really the case because we know the stars aren't really in a sphere. They're really out in this big, massive 3D space. And they're like infinitely far away for the most part. And they're so big. And that's why we can't see parallax. Oh, and by the way, the celestial sphere was just a concept, but we're going to stick to the globe, the terrestrial sphere that came out of that, as if it's reality, divorcing it from their own belief system. And now they got a problem. So now they have to reconcile the infinite geometry of outer space, a celestial sphere now with an infinite radius, with a curving surface? Well, let me ask you, if you have a sphere with an infinite radius, like the celestial sphere is said to be, how do you measure curvature? It would be flat, wouldn't it? Oh, now you're stuck in a paradox. And
It's
this
kind
is
of
where
a
the globe is
problem
today.
when that word model gets thrown around. It's like, what are we
Mhm.
talking about? We talking about car model, toy model, science model? Well, for the science model, there would have to be a physical varying and manipulating of a variable. So you
Right.
just ask them, hey, where's your varying and manipulating of astrophysics or astronomy? And
I know. Well, we're talking
yeah, you'll
colloquial
never get it.
models. We're talking Big Tent colloquial models right now. I mean, obviously, this is not a scientific model, and that's what they're reifying into
Define
science. They
define
think they
colloquial
think that
model. How do you define that?
what a model's a representation. In this case, a
Like a
representation of an
presentation
idea.
is what you're saying. Like just a presentation.
Yeah, a presentation, a representation of an idea rather than some actual phenomena that is known to exist. It's a model of an interpretation of a phenomena that is known to exist. So it's already like a second or third order simulacrum at this point.
Yeah, they never had a science model to begin with. I know that.
No, no, they don't. There is no scientific model of a globe. That is absolutely true. Now they do have conceptual models, like we build 3D models, right? NASA takes a 3D wire mesh ball called a 3D model. They they blow it up so that they can get as many sides to it as possible. Why? Because computers don't necessarily, well, at least back in the day, they couldn't really render continuous curvature.
What's the difference between that and just like fairy tales and cartoons? Conceptual model.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to think of the difference.
Well, yeah, I mean, they build up conceptual models so that they can be reified. And I think that's the difference, because fairy tales aren't necessarily easily reified. But if you take what is a conceptual model and you start making claims about it and attributions that don't exist but sound good, sound real, sound plausible, then people start to think that it could be a scientific model when it's not. And that's where we are with the globe. And another thing too to mention is the globe model that's used in surveying is used as a conventional tool. It's used because the coordinate reference system that we use, for the most part, worldwide standard, where the distances between points of reference on that coordinate system are subject to the dimensions of the WGS84 ellipsoid, thus giving you calculable distances of lat and long. That's a convention. Like pretty much everybody in the world uses this. And so surveyors will go out there, they'll take their flat measurements, and then they'll contort them to match the spherical ball, WGS84. Or if they go a step further, they'll incorporate something called the geoid, which is also built on the chassis of WGS84. It's gravity vector anomalies, which you could model just as easily on a flat plane, thus showing and revealing the arbitrary nature of this. So geodetic surveyors, like if you go take courses on geodesy, you'll see and understand very plainly how it is that the globe is a model and that the Earth cannot be measured as a globe. And instead, what's brought in and introduced to the measurements is a conceptual model for the measurements to conform to. And they can also go the other way. They can also take something that's already been conformed to the curvature of WGS84, and then they can flatten it back out again. In either case, it does not necessarily match reality, which is also why we have in the field of surveying too tomes of cases, whether it's presentations at geodesy conferences, whether it's in Department of Transportation highway surveying manuals, or oil pipeline construction manuals, or academic manuals, or academic papers and plan maps of even like the Eurotunnel and so on and so forth. In case after case, practical example and even academic examples, we see something that shouldn't be considered taboo. And that's the understanding that this model of Earth, WGS84, is precisely that, just a conceptual mathematical datum. And furthermore, using it in conjunction with your surveys, while it may be conformal to international standards and therefore useful in that fashion, the measurements will actually be wrong. And you can get more precise measurements by ditching the spherical geometry and going with flat planar Euclidean geometry instead. We got so many examples of this being done in the real world. And you know what? These people doing it, I'm not saying they're flat earthers. They're still globers. They still believe in the globe. They just are honest about what they're doing. And they may not have had enough time to think about the connective tissue of what they're working on in order to jump to the conclusion that, hey, maybe the Earth isn't an actual globe after all. And part of the reason for this is due to the pressure of social conformity, ash conformity. There's a social cost to becoming a flat earther, and everybody knows it. The social cost is enduring ridicule. Why? Because people were told flat earthers are dumb. Why? Because Christopher Columbus, was he going to sail off the edge of the earth, like into outer space? The Greeks proved it was a globe thousands of years ago, and there's still these dumb people today that think Earth is flat. What the hell? I mean, we're taught these things when we're young, and most people, even when they're confronted with the reality of the Earth that they live on and measure it for a fucking living, will still outwardly publicly declare that Earth is the globe, the very model that they're using and reifying through their own work, that they understand to be a reification of. Because they don't want to face social, societal pressure. They want to face ridicule from their friends and family. And maybe it's a personal ego thing too. So yeah, I mean, we're adamant. The way to prove to us that the Earth is a globe is to prove to us that the geometry measures as such. Measures, not calculates. You give me coordinate distances. You give me New York's Latin long and you give me Paris's Latin long and you calculate the distance. How do you know that that's the distance? If you're to make a triangle with those places out of, I don't know, freaking London, although that'd be a lopsided triangle, maybe Reykjavik in Iceland, you make a big triangle. In Euclidean geometry, those add up to 180 degrees. The burden of proof is on you to demonstrate that Earth is a globe, and therefore, with the curved sides of the triangle, it's not even a triangle anymore, it's a spherical triangle, that those angles do not measure 180 degrees. Or if you were to try to attempt to measure 180 degrees out of them, you'd not be able to enclose the triangle when you get back to your starting point. Or you'd have to curve at least, 2 of the 3 sides in order to make it work. And you have to prove that this is being done in reality. I get that it doesn't work in the math. Flat earthers who understand this shit get that the math doesn't work for a flat earth. Yes, because you're assuming that math, in this case, the coordinate calculated distances are real when they're not. But from the glober's perspective, they start with that assumption that these are real. And then they say, well, if I apply this math to a flat surface, you're going to get all this distortion. Yeah, well, no shit. You don't have to be talking about like a globe versus flat earth to make that assessment. You could be talking about projecting a golf ball onto a piece of construction paper. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not impressed with a lot of these arguments coming from the globe side. Also not too impressed with some of the flat earth arguments either. That's another topic for another day, perhaps. For more information on that, see Yoder's list. The 50 plus bad or misused arguments by people in the flat earth community. Yeah, I'm subjecting us to our own internal critique. Probably in ways that some other more popular and more energetic flat earthers out there have not done in a proper manner correctly, whose names will not be mentioned. We're going after arguments and not people. And the point here is to demonstrate that we are about what is true, what is directly observable and measurable, can be experienced objectively. Truth is one of those funny things where when you see it once, you can't go back. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. And that's why for flat earthers, for people who really understand this, and know it and have observed and measured it, why we can't go back to the globe. Truth has a funny thing of being a one-way street. You know, you look into this topic long enough and you become frustrated. You're like, why can't I freaking prove the Earth is a globe? I thought this would be easy. I thought this would be easy. We all, like almost all of us in here who are flat earthers, had gone through that process. I took the radius challenge. I heard flat earthers say, nobody's ever demonstrated any measurement substantiating the radius of Earth. The R value is just made up mathematically. There's actually no measurement to back it up. I'm like, oh, bullshit. Let me go find it. I'll find it. I'm sure it's got to be out there. We can't be this advanced as a civilization, and nobody's ever fucking done this yet. And then you start looking. It's like, okay, I'm going to read about this study. I'm going to read about this project or this paper. And, you find, okay, here's the R value for that. Okay, let's check the references. Where they get that from? Oh, they got it from that department. Okay, let me go find papers from that department. You start taking down papers and you look at the R value. Great. Okay, where'd they get that from? Check down the references. Oh, okay, they say they got it from there. And you keep going and you keep going and you keep going. And you sometimes get back to where you started from. Like, holy shit, this is all circular reporting. Nobody's actually done this. Everybody thinks some other department, everybody thinks somebody somewhere else has actually done it. And nobody's actually gone to check to see if it was ever really done. It's like it's a nightmare, man. It's like an urban myth that has gone way out of control. It's like not really a noble lie, but a noble delusion. You know what the noble lie is? The noble lie is when emperors had to amalgamate people from different cultures and religions across different worlds under one rulership. They give everybody one common cause to believe in. What's the most popular one we know of today in the West? The American dream, right? And the American dream is a noble lie. Space is one of those noble lies, a noble self-delusion that we have. MAGA patriotism is a noble lie. We got all these myths to back up what we believe because it creates societal cohesion. Some of it is done on purpose. The ones imposed by emperors as god rulers over mere mortal men were done on purpose, purposeful deceptions. But not all of them are. Many of them are self-delusions, grand delusions, mass formation psychosis too. So, people come in here and say, oh, you guys must think everyone at NASA is lying to you. No, I really don't think that's the case. I think they're wrong. That's a whole different matter. And I think many of them are deluded too. There are probably some people who work there that actually know the Earth is not a globe. These are going to be the Path A people we talked about before, the builders and the conscious adopters. For the most part, look at the Apollo moon mission astronauts. Were they ever in a position to know that the Earth is flat or a globe? You buy the moon landings? Let's say you don't buy the moon landings. Buzz Aldrin could still think the Earth's a globe. And he could also be concealing the fact that he never went to the moon. Right? You could have teams of engineers right now working for NASA who secretly know that they're not really orbiting satellites around a globe, but they're still working on it. They're still trying to fucking figure it out, and they can't do it yet. Easily conceivable. You want to talk about arguments that are not of necessity, but of probability? You want to talk about we get people in here all the time, the subjective realists that come in and want to argue modals of probability with us in order to decide that Earth is a globe objectively. Like it's fucking madness, but this is what postmodernism gets you, I guess. Oh yeah, look at Newt spiraling in the side chat. Holy crap. Thousands of years of history prove it.
Yeah, he's spiraling about the ancient Egyptians. He's claiming they were globe earthers.
Oh,
the
bullshit.
Ancient Egyptians.
Bullshit. Like, I don't think any Egyptologist, you want to talk about trusting authority? Go find me Egyptologists who say that they believe the Earth was a globe. And then not only go find them, but show me citations. And then let's talk about why they say that that's the case. Because for everyone that you pull up, I could probably pull up a dozen who disagree. And now we've reached an impasse. And the impasse is, what, we're going to rely on authoritative figures to make up our minds for us? No, we can break that impasse by going directly to these laser tests that we have and these long-distance observations. We know Earth can't be a globe. We know that WGS 84
Wait, why don't I
can't
just
be
ask a
true
Mason
because of how we
about
measure the Earth
Egypt?
flat.
Wait, why don't I ask a Mason? All of their lodges are styled like Egyptian temples. Why don't I ask the founding fathers what the hell they meant by that?
The fuck are you talking about? They
You
build
wanna
their
hear
Talk about
pyramids
the
on a flat
Masons who
floor,
do
dude.
Egyptian rituals to this day while you sit here and smirk and act like a jackass
Yeah.
about
Well,
it. That
guess what?
part.
Yeah, when I stepped into a lodge, the floor was flat.
Oh, wait. Oh, wow. The checkered floor, right? Hello? Did I lose you?
Okay, yeah,
In the
flat
checkered
one.
floor? Did
Yeah,
I
the
lose
flat
you in
one
the
that you
abyss
said
or
was
something?
modeling
You
the
stepped on
globe.
the wrong tile.
The flat floor that you said was modeling the globe.
Yeah, that's an Azazel.
Yeah, the flat one
You
that
don't know
models
what
the
that
globe.
is. That idiot, that's the black sun,
The
you
flat one that models
dumbass.
the globe. You said.
No, you idiot.
Yeah,
Wow, so
no,
you don't even
idiot.
know the first
Yeah,
rite
you
of
said that they
masonry, but
modeled
you
their.
want to act like
You said they
what a
modeled this after
jackass.
the world, right? Yeah.
Huh?
Well, it's a fucking flat floor,
Well,
isn't
based
it?
on the Egyptians'
Jackass.
teachings, yeah. They modeled it based on what the Egyptians taught about it, yeah.
Oh
The
yeah.
Coptics,
I guess what? You're a
Coptics did
Mason now,
too.
Newt. You're a
No, the
Mason.
Coptics did too. The Celts, the
Yeah.
Jesuits, the
How much?
Masons, the
You want to talk
Rosicrucianists.
Masonry? Were you a Mason? Are you
Isn't
a
that your
Mason?
history? Why aren't you proud of it? What's going on? You're acting like a
Proud of
schizo
what?
all of a
Why
sudden.
would I be proud of what history?
The Egyptian
You're a Mason
export
now?
that. Are you? You're the one
I used to
batting
be.
it away.
I used to be. Yeah, I demitted from the lodge in all orders.
Yeah, cool. Do you know about the Egyptian rite of Memphis then in the 90th degrees?
Yeah, I do actually.
Good.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
do you
I know
know
that
shit
Wait,
about
I know that
you,
they're
yeah,
not a
'cause I
regular
definitely do.
Masonry
Yeah,
either.
I definitely do.
You have to basically go to Italy to get those initiations. So yeah, I know a lot about
No,
that
you
shit.
don't. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
exactly
you
how
do.
each one of
You
them
do.
works too. Yeah. So here's the thing. Do you know what? I know what temple it's based on in Egypt too. I know how the Book of Jude relates to it. So you see who you're talking to, clown ass, while you sit here and pretend like Egypt ain't shit.
No, if you knew anything, you'd know that
I know
Masonry
exactly
really
what that
knows.
is.
Listen,
I know about
no,
atmospheric
you
radiation
don't know
codes
shit
and how it
because
relates. Shut
Masonic
up, you
scholars. No,
monkey.
man, you shut up. Okay,
You
Masonic
fucking
scholars
monkey.
will admit to you and tell you that they don't even know where
Why would
Masonry
Why
comes
would I
from.
on your white asses when we have other black
No,
people who
white
know the
asses.
same
What the
stuff
fuck
that
are you
you do?
talking about?
You're the ones who covered it up through the Pope and the yeah. You
I
did all
didn't
that.
cover shit up, dude. The
No,
Pope
your people
granted,
did. Your history
Pope
is covering up
granted,
Egyptian shit and pretending like you know
Boy,
what you're
Pope
talking about.
granted,
And
the
I'm all
Pope
in your
granted
goofy ass about it because I know what I'm talking about, especially
The
about the
Pope
90th
granted the
degrees.
Jacobite kings
Watch
a
you fall
right
apart like
to
the
found
dust you are
Masonic
right now.
lodges during
While
the
you sitting here
Jacobite
talk about
rebellion.
flat Earth all day, you
You
jackass.
think
You
the
know damn
Pope
well
is
it isn't
against
because you
Masonry?
actually took the degrees that taught you different.
You're on your way to
You
hell,
think
Piece
the
of
Pope?
shit.
You think the Pope is against
I
Masonry?
don't
He
have to
provided.
think. I
There's a
don't have
guy.
to think.
Listen,
I
there
know
was an
exactly how the
initiator
Jesuits,
into
the Knights of the
Masonic lodges
Templar, the
during
Round,
the
all
Jacobite
of that
rebellion.
factor. You know
His
they're
name
on
was
YouTube right now,
Martinez de
spilling the
Pasquale,
beans while
dude.
you sitting
Have you
here
ever heard of
talking about
Martinez de
flat Earth all
Pasquale?
fucking day, even though your
Martinez
dumb
de
ass is a Mason
Pasquale
who knows
had a
better.
Masonic
you
pact
came
What
in
kind
here
of trick
talking
are you,
about
dude?
the
What kind of
Stuart,
trick are
the
you right
Stuart
now?
kings that were
You're a
ousted out of
fucking trick.
England. And that patent
I'm
had
glad I
with
ran
it
up on
a
your
letter
ass
from the
today
Pope
too.
that granted Martinez de Pasquale the ability to form lodges with the Pope's
Eastern
blessing
Orthodoxy
all over Europe, and they
Roman
initiated
Catholicism
all the
are
kings and
children of
queens
the
of Europe
devil.
through Catherine the Great and so on. They were all part of the same order.
Oy vey, it was the white man.
Jeez Louise, dude. Yeah, the Masonry and the Roman Catholics meet at the same table. Yep.
Okay,
You should look into the history of Martinism, Newt. I bet you don't know shit about Martinism. Martinism, which birthed the fucking Scottish Rite. Yeah, it's founded by Roman Catholics and Jesuits who wrote the frickin' initiatic rituals within Martinism.
I didn't know Egyptians were black either.
Yeah, holy shit.
Yeah, there's a lot you're gonna find out in the years to come about this planetary system and the universe at large.
Planetary
You fucking lied
system,
about it for
bro.
3,000
Okay.
goddamn years.
Now,
When did
just say it's
Egyptians become
planetary.
black?
Don't worry about it. Why don't you go pick up some books and read about it, smart ass? You've been covering up for 3,000 years. So
I've been
I'm sure you're
covering up.
familiar with
I
the
haven't been
territory.
alive for 2,000 years.
Newt still thinks he lives on a planet.
I don't have
Isn't
to
that
think
cute?
about shit. I know exactly where my
Obviously
soul
you're
is, and I
not.
know what kind of motherfuckers
You don't
all
have
you
Christ
goofy
yet.
assholes are.
Boy,
That's
this
for
guy
goddamn
is
sure
so
at this
fucking
moment.
triggered.
Nice to meet you,
I
finally.
really don't like Eastern Orthodoxy.
You sound so full of soy. Just
reach your hand into your diapers and start throwing crap because you can't handle it.
Literally now he's a racist.
Yeah, holy shit.
Last time I checked, Egyptians were brown skinned, not black.
Why is Newton so upset?
He heard the Earth's flat.
So
He
what's
started
outside
running
of
his mouth off about masonry as if he knew anything about it because he reads books.
what's outside of the Antarctic Circle? What's on the other side?
Why don't you have
More
him
Earth?
tell you about how
Probably more
Zeta
Earth,
Zero
I would imagine.
Reticuli and HD
Probably more Earth and or
10810
water.
has direct correspondence
for
with our
crying out
planetary
loud, dude.
system.
What
Why
the
doesn't
fuck are
this
you
flat
babbling
earther tell you
about?
about that?
Fucking autistic retard, dude. Come on.
Where you at, Dr. Yoder? You know about the correspondence with Zeta Zero at all? Of course you don't.
I didn't say I do or don't, man.
Oh, I do. You want me to post
Oh,
the
good
math
for
in
you.
Subchat?
Yeah, you should. Yeah, you want to reach around there too, guy. You need
Yeah,
somebody
you have
to
to
pull
do
you
a reach
off.
around to get to
Can
it.
somebody pull you off there, Newt?
Yeah, the Mayans knew how to do that, and Gilgamesh,
okay,
right?
yeah, the Mayans. Yeah, I bet you know all about the Mayans too
They
because you read
taught
a
you
book.
Masons about the Babylonian tablets, didn't they? They
yeah,
did.
right.
They did, you little dick.
Babylonian tablets.
Yeah,
And
you want me to name them?
Mayan
You want me to
Babylonian
name them?
tablets.
Yale
Tell
has
me
a
more
lot of
about
them.
these Mayan Babylonian tablets.
Yeah, so I think Skull and Bone 322 refers to Plimpton 322, which is Babylonian square root of 2 math.
Oh boy,
which
yeah,
is,
you can think whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, it's how you double cross God across the diagonal, literally, through the planetary system.
Yeah. I'm sure.
And the people in Babylon were great at it, right? And then a bunch of white people figure they might as well do that in secret and call it Christianity, right?
Meanings and behind everything, like Russian nesting dolls. Like
you don't have to guess anymore. You can just aim these powerful AIs that everybody wants to disable at your history and ask for structural correspondence.
Masons don't even know what their own symbols actually mean because
they do. I already put it in side
interpretation,
chat.
Newt.
Yeah, I put the Egyptian rite of Memphis in side chat. The whole 90 to 100
good for you, buddy. And guess what?
Yeah.
It also
but
won't
I guess you think we have to go to a white place in Italy to learn our own fucking history, right?
Bias.
Jackass? Huh?
Yeah, it's confirmation bias. You read into
from
it.
What? Well, I got to go to the white people who stole this from Egypt to learn how to do it. This is what this idiot's yapping about. Huh?
The server topic or the topic is not race.
And imagine thinking you could keep this secret for thousands of years. Nobody's going to decode this stupid shit. You got to be kidding me, man. You guys are pathetic.
Newton, that's not very nice, Newton.
Oh, I mean every fucking word I just said.
Oh my god. Have a meltdown, why don't you?
And you know I know exactly what this shit is too. That's the fucking
No, you
thing.
don't.
Yes, I do, you fucking white jackass. You fucking know I do. At the bottom of your sorry ass soul, you know I do.
More reification bullshit like what I was talking about.
Is he still talking about the ice cream social club?
Sounded like it.
Why does he have to be a white dumbass? Is that different than a black dumbass or a brown dumbass? Or are there like different levels of dumbass based on race? What's the...
Alright, you're done, Newt.
I'm coming in late, but I heard like Memphis, and I scrolled up in the side chat. And I seen Africa. Have you guys ever looked at the theory of America being Egypt? Like with
yeah. Mormons believe that shit too.
Well, I'm not a Mormon. But it says the river has 7 heads. The Nile doesn't have 7 tributaries. The Mississippi does.
Doesn't mean it never did. Didn't mean 7 is also a literal number. I mean, all this stuff, like I was saying, is subjective, right? Like I was saying too, Masonic scholars don't even really know where their own history comes from. Their symbology is all subjective, and there are multiple interpretations. Some of them seem to have more weight than others, but that's also subjective interpretation in and of itself. It's just one gigantic freaking clusterfuck of affirming the consequent fallacies. That's why people who go into these looking for answers are satisfied with confirmation bias when they read a book and it resonates with something that they want to be true, like what Newt does, and then they start preaching to the world that they fucking figured it out. And meanwhile, there are other explanations that are also equally without merit. Yeah, 322. I've heard so many different interpretations of 322 and the Ho Grad Academy, which is a Masonic academy out in my state. For you to declare that you figured it out and it's got to be this one. I mean, yeah. So did like these 10 other scholars, freaking 90 years old and studying this shit for most of their life, also thought they figured it out and offer extremely compelling arguments to support their subjective point of view. Good for you, Newt. Add yourself to the mix. You think like Masons are modeling their lodges after the globe? What the fuck? Their floor is flat. Last I checked, you'll have a hard time, applying a square and a compass together on a globe. Compass, yeah, you can pull that off. You can draw circles on a globe with a compass, but that square, man, that doesn't lay flat on a globe. They both work on a flat surface. Anyway, sorry about the audio chaos. I couldn't find the mute button when I clicked on his profile because there was like nothing there. Like I click on his profile and server mute wasn't available. I'm like, shit. So here he's like mouthing off about all this TOS violation crap, and I'm having to just bark over it and hoping it scrambles the audio and he doesn't get us struck on YouTube.
Yeah,
Thank you,
maybe
DJ,
check it. Yeah, check your DM. There might be a solution.
I see. No, I got that taken care of. So, I mean, I was muting some other guy just 5 minutes before Newt, but yeah, Newt didn't offer a server mute button.
Oh man, we got rid of Newton.
Yeah,
have
TOS violations.
Okay, if someone has you muted, then you can't do anything to them. So maybe he just temporarily muted you or something like that while he was talking, so you couldn't mute him.
No, the trick is if they block you, then you can't see a server button on them.
Oh, that's what I meant.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. Okay, well, all right, so let's seek a permaban for his ass for blocking mods and TOS violations.
He's nothing. He's always just he should be permabanned. He's always just derailing conversations, and he's a moron anyway. Just thinks he's smart.
Wasn't he one of the guys that like Heretic or somebody had to debate in order to get a room in here? Tossed his ass so badly that the server owners are like, yeah, shit, that's funny. We're gonna get 24/7 flat Earth in here. That's how we ended up. Shout out to Heretic. I mean, there's another guy that we had to debate too, Ariel, who I kind of like and respect. He's an actual aeronautics engineer. Works for one of the big ones, and I think he does propulsion systems, he said. I mean, he's got some interesting points and interesting ways to talk about what he knows firsthand. But yeah, we had to debate him too, and afterwards they thought we were worthy, so they allowed us to set up a room. It's kind of nice. Yeah, but that Newt character, like every single time he comes in and like brings it all to like freaking Aleister Crowley. he's so far up Aleister Crowley's ass.
Let's be truthful though. Does he have any sort of claim, like basis for his claims that you're a Freemason? Is this true?
Sorry, what was that? Does he have any claims like that I'm a Freemason? What?
Yeah. Are you a Freemason at all? Is there any
No, I used to be when I was younger, but I demitted from it. I've got the letter, as well as all the orders that I belong to. I got out of the cult.
I've got two first cousins that both, well, one's older than the other, and he kind of recruited the younger one, and they have like completely separated themselves from our family, and we're like a really close family.
Oh, it is a cult, man. Yep. But you know what? Like when your family's involved in it and pretty much everybody you know is, and you're growing up around it, you kind of think it's the normal thing to do. So you'll seek it out and then you join, and you don't really think there's anything wrong with it. And for the most part, I mean, it really is like just a bunch of dudes from your like local Baptist church that get together at the Masonic Lodge on, 2 or 3 times a month for stated meetings and then have barbecues.
Ice cream.
Or if you join the Martinists for Pancake Sunday.
I will say the first one, the older one, when he joined, it was like just a couple years and he became a millionaire. And the younger one, he joined and then he changed careers and became a financial advisor and also became a millionaire. They're both extremely wealthy.
Yeah, you'll get hooked up for sure. I mean, and it's mostly dominated by a lot of like blue collar work types. Policemen, firemen, construction workers, electricians, tradesmen of all kinds. It's really dominated by a lot of them. But you'll also find like people in government, like judges. Local judges are in there.
Like small town politicians and like
Yeah,
you said,
mayor.
firefighters, cops.
Right. Occasionally doctors too. People who want to make money and get connected join all kinds of organizations. And they'll join like Masonry just to expand their reach a bit further, because they're also going to the Moose Lodge down the street. They're going to the Rotary Club. Masonry is just like another thing that they do. And they'll sit and participate minimally. They'll get their 3 degrees, become a Master Mason. They'll get invited to like, I don't know, York Rite or whatever, Scottish Rite. They'll go through the chairs in the Blue Lodge, and then they'll get their 32nd degree in Scottish Masonry over a weekend by watching a ton of plays by old dudes. And then they get bored and they stop showing up.
It reminds me of like an adult fraternity.
Yeah. I mean, for most it is. Now, what's also available to you is basically like Hogwarts. There are a lot of like weird people with a lot of really interesting occult knowledge who write papers and like to go on lecture circuits. And so as part of like a meeting in the lodge, they'll invite like a guest speaker who travels around, who's, also a high grade Mason. And he'll give a speech, for example, why do we wear the Masonic apron? And then they'll tie it back into when Adam and Eve had to fashion clothing, or had God help them fashion clothing for themselves when they felt naked. And they'll start going into that, or they'll tie it into like, Jason and the Argonauts or whatever. They'll just look for connections. It's all about mixing everything together so that everything is the same, and then they can declare that all religions are just different versions of God expressing himself and people expressing God, and and that's really the end of it. In fact, the end of it is to say that you are God and you are one with God. Yeah, totally. Monism is kind of the end of the road for most of these people. And then from there, it can kind of go into different directions, right? You start learning about the myth. You learn about how to basically build your own little occult society, and you can start your own cult too. And there's a famous Martinist named Gurdjieff, who was basically a jester. He was like a clown, and he'd go around and he started initiating all these like very important wealthy people all over Europe And while like his adherents and followers were taking the initiations very seriously, he was just making shit up on the fly and would write about in his diary. And then
They've
after
done
he
that
died,
before.
yeah, Gurdjieff is a famous case of this. And this happens all the time.
Yep. Amazing Randy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sounds like self-righteousness.
He's my boyfriend Carlos. He's a psychic, and he's gonna get all joined on his cult, and he's just pulls a rug out from under him at the end of like 2 years of just like leading him on.
Yep.
He's like, you need to be more careful about what you put your belief in.
Yep. So the scaffolding is there, like within the lodge, to learn how to do all this shit and basically become a cult leader if you want. So, and people do.
It's good
But
to
you don't have to
understand
join the
though,
lodge
the
to
methods of
learn it. It's just there.
manipulation, and like it's good to understand like how these things are used kind of against us, so like they can call it red flags before they happen.
Yeah, some of the red flags happen early on for people so like newcomers that come in are told, yeah, man, like this isn't going to interfere with your normal life. You can still go to church, do your normal thing, have your normal life. Just come to the one stated meeting a month. You got to come to the one monthly meeting called a stated meeting. That's all that we ask you to do. Try your best to make it. We also have other meetings that go on. It'd be great if you could come to them too. So you start going up to the one meeting a month, and it becomes 2 meetings a month, and then 3, and then 4.
Yeah. Have you been
And then
mastering
sooner or
the
later,
Lizard Overlord yet? No. Okay, come with me.
yeah.
What do you do at the meeting?
Bake
So
sale.
basically, you walk in. You either sit to the left or to the right of the altar, you could say, and you face Oriental East with the worshipful master up there. And then it's really boring. It's really like corporate meeting minutes. Not even joking. They'll take they'll talk about money that they raised. They'll talk about how much money they still need to raise, and they'll talk about all the philanthropic ventures that they get into. And then they'll talk about, hey, we got these retreats that you can go to, so sign up for the retreat, and we're gonna have guest speakers in over the next few weeks to talk about these interesting things. And that's really what the stated meeting is. The stated meeting is the driest, boringest crap. And then if you're lucky, there will be like an initiate who will go through like their first degree or something. And then so you get to watch that. Or if you're part of the program, you actually get to be take part in it. So
you get to hold the rope that he's noosed up against.
Exactly. You get to hold the rope, where you get to poke the thing, and sometimes it's a knife into his chest, and he's blindfolded. I know it's a knife. In other states, they just use like a blunt object.
Yeah.
So, in my state they didn't use a knife, but we had swords. For the pursuivants had swords instead of sticks, and in like other lodges they use sticks. But here in Pennsylvania, they use swords, which is a tribute to the York Rite.
I work in corporate IT, and I waste enough hours a week listening to bullshit.
Yeah, it really is that
similar
boring.
to being in a corporate environment. It's very, very similar.
And I'd say, listen, the reason I went was because like I got to hang out with people I thought were cool, and we'd go to like bars afterwards on a weekday and just get hammered.
We're gonna go out and do things, Nah. Come on, guys, where's your Freemasonry spirit? Let's go. Let's shake this shit up a bit. It's like, get him out of here.
Yep. And along the way, guys, I mean, you're going to learn some interesting stuff about world history. I don't know how much of it's true now, looking back. Probably very little. But, they kind of pride themselves on being the keepers of ancient knowledge, Egyptian and Babylonian, primarily, and Greek.
A lot of wheels within wheels kind of stuff.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just crazy as shit. You learn too a lot about America. Like, America is a gigantic Masonic experiment. Don't get me wrong.
Of course it is. They got all these these pilgrims and shit to come over and colonize the place just to sell them sailcloth and shovels and supplies to make billions of dollars and start their financial empires from.
Well, you feel like you're part of like the founding fathers and the spirit of liberal democracy. You feel like you're part of that. Like in my lodge, we had Thomas Jefferson's freaking desk, the secretary that he wrote important stuff on right there. Like I could walk up to and touch it, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. All kinds of cool stuff we had.
Oh yeah.
And so they really play those harp strings on you. Is you're connecting with your people and your culture. This is who we are. And then you start So, like, if you start having some worries, like, well, this is kind of weird, like, how God's like an architect, and then like this is just, it kind of doesn't feel entirely Christian. And then who shows up to one of these meetings but like a local pastor from like the Lutheran church or something? Like, okay, I guess it's not that bad after all.
Yeah, it's like it's a duality thing. There's like there's like ways it can bring you up and ways that it can help the community, and there's also ways that you can use it to start your own culty, weird jiggy empire.
Exactly. I mean, calling it like Hogwarts is entirely true. Like, you got the House of Slytherin and the House of Hufflepuff on opposite ends of each other within one lodge. You got people who came in because first they were like OTO, Aleister Crowley types.
Nice.
You got others that might have come in like Golden Dawn types. And you got others that came in from like mainstream Christianity. You got very few Catholics, but there are some, many Protestants. Some Jews, some Muslims.
The Catholics would be the ones that would be arguing every single point that gets brought up. Well, what about, this contradicts the script?
You think that, but get this. Like, I was talking about this earlier with the guy that got unhinged. He was talking about, like, how Catholicism was against Freemasonry. And yeah, while that's overtly true, the Pope had granted one of the founders and biggest influencers of Freemasonry, the Pope granted him clemency, not just clemency, permission to found Masonic lodges throughout Europe.
Yeah, he needed permission. Of course he did.
Well, yeah, and in order to join his order, you first had to be a baptized Roman Catholic to join his Masonic lodge.
Yeah,
and it was
like
his
an up-and-coming mafia, and you need the big mafia to go, hey, we'll let this guy, he can do what he wants,
Yeah,
he's paying
but his system, dude, became the Scottish Rite, which is the most popular rite of Masonry today.
Yeah.
And the guy was a Roman Catholic, and his secretary was a Jesuit priest who wrote the rituals for, like.
This also bleeds into like Illuminati stuff as well, like quote unquote, whatever word you want to use for that shady kind of thing, because like Freemasonry, like they called like a mass summit in like the early 1900s, like late 1800s, and they're like, they go to the King of England, like, we need to quit and disband. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, we've been infiltrated by this like thing, organization type intelligence or whatever, and we can't resist it. Like, we've been completely compromised. He's like, no. You're a fundamental part of society. We're not breaking up anything. Like, God, I'm part of it. Like,
yeah, that's true. I mean, so one of the things that they did that I think was true and potentially noble was that they were trying to, early on. This is before there was like,
yes,
this is before there was the Scottish Rite. They were trying to initiate all the kings and queens and everybody, all the royalty of Europe together to stop the fucking wars.
Until it became a profitable thing.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't work, obviously.
Yeah, they're completely compromised by some, thing that's a lot more evil than it lets on. I can't even put it into words because it's beyond my pay grade. I don't fully understand it.
Dick Cheney. Like infiltrated by Dick Cheney's.
Wait,
hey, it's Crinkle Wienerstein Charles. How we doing, man?
Oh. What was that?
Anyway, you know what was weird though? I'll tell you what was weird was like seeing like Hebrew letters. And I'm talking not like Paleo Hebrew, but the Babylonian block Hebrew, Masoretic Hebrew stuff around the lodge. And it's because back in like the 1800s, they really did think that the Masoretic Babylonian block Hebrew was the same ancient Hebrew that like Moses wrote the Ten Commandments on. Which is absolutely false. But back then, a few hundred years ago, they didn't know any better.
Oh, yeah.
And they thought they were tapping into this ancient biblical knowledge when instead it was leading them to freaking Canaanite.
Wait. So you're telling me that the world's not a block, bro? I thought the world was a block, bro.
That can
be I thought it was flat.
You are like coming in the side door. You're coming in the side door, just babbling shit. Anyway, I know you're trying to bring it on topic, but I had to mute you because you were done.
That could be the root of that corruption, you know what I mean? Tapping into something that they weren't prepared, they didn't know the consequences of it, like how corrupted it was.
Yep.
And then bing, bang, boom, comes something that's interesting.
Yeah, they were tapping into Babylonian Talmudism and thought it was like the perennial religion of the Old Testament Hebrews. Not even joking.
Oh, that could be, yeah, so actually join some shit.
That's the critical failure of Masonry.
Huh.
Yep. And they still buy it today. Like, and then when people started discovering like the Proto-Sinaitic texts, the when they started discovering the Samaritan text from the Old Testament. That's
All the
written
band stuff?
in Proto-Hebrew, Proto-Greek. It looks like Latin, and it's thousands of years older. That the Phoenicians also wrote in the same script. It started to get people to wonder, holy shit, like the Babylonian Masoretic block Hebrew is really not what the original Hebrew looked like. The original Hebrew looked freaking Latin and Greek.
Wow. Yeah, I heard that it's inverted. You know how, like, if I'm speaking French or I'm like putting together French sentences, it's almost like backwards. Like I'm over there going, stuff like that. Like it's kind of like jumbled. I heard that ancient Hebrew, as opposed to modern Hebrew, like the modern Hebrew is reversed like that. Like because it's somehow scrambled and it had like negative connotations. I'm not too sure, but
I don't know any Hebrew grammar.
Yeah, neither do I.
Yeah.
Well, like English is the oddball. Like pretty much all other languages are backwards like that. Like you put the noun
German is
Greek.
Bastard inbred fucking languages.
The other thing too that they didn't realize that the Masons didn't understand, which they got wrong, was that the Greek was the language of the Jews for like 250 to 300 years before Christ, and for even period after, until they blotted it out. The Greek language and the Greek translations of the Old Testament scriptures, the Septuagint, was considered by the Hellenistic Jews before Christ to be as good as the original Hebrew that their people had spoken, and was the script that the apostles of Jesus would refer to. They referred to the Septuagint. And the Septuagint is the primary translation, you could say, that's used today by the Eastern Orthodox Church. They don't use anything else for the Old Testament but the Septuagint. Understanding that the Greek was the lingua franca. I mean, like Hebrew was a dead language by the time of Alexander the Great.
Oh yeah.
And so, Masons who think they're tapping into ancient knowledge kind of skip over all these important.
Like all these religious leaders and stuff were scrambling for any scraps that they could find of these previous religious paradigms and like this lost history. They would pay exorbitant amounts of money for stuff. Like you can even pick out some of the Egyptian stuff that kind of survived that period, but they've all been like glossed over. Like they were looking for all that stuff. It's almost like Hitler's grab for the same thing in World War II. They're always just like coveting these like kind of like old kind of heirloom objects. They need that shit.
All right, I'm done derailing the topic. Let's get back to flat Earth. It's a fun derailment, though.
It's fun when it happens. That's what flat Earth's actually for. It's for questioning things and making decisions for yourself on what you choose to be true or not.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of the cult mentality.
Yeah, it's like a stepping stone, use that. Or you could just argue for the next 20,000 years about the same thing,
I was on the fence of flat Earth for a while, and I reached this period where I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not fully on board with this, but these flat earthers, they're saying right things, right? They're telling me to think for myself. They're telling me to challenge their positions. And they're asking me for the burden of proof and a claim that I made, which I absolutely have. And if I don't have any proof to offer, then I shouldn't be making the claim. I'm like, these guys are totally on point. These things are not cult-like at all. This is actually very, very good epistemics. So, and then I got to the point where I'm like, you know what? Maybe the Earth is a globe, but they just got fucking lucky. They don't have a measurement because they got fucking lucky. They got fucking lucky with like Sputnik. They launched so many rockets, and eventually one of them fucking worked, and it started to orbit, and they're like, yay, they got fucking lucky. And it just kind of backwards validated all the suspicions they had about Earth being a globe all along. And then I'm like,
we have thousands of measurements, so no worries.
Really? Which one is your favorite?
I mean, I just looked up one recently. I mean, I can share it if you want.
Tell me about it.
Um, it's from the the principal meridian in Nebraska. It's 2 ranges to the west and 11 townships to the north. And what it does is it shows you where the other township to the north begins, like on both of them. And you can see that the section 36 for that northern townships, well, they start west of the section 6 of its own township. And that's exactly what you would expect on a sphere.
Why wouldn't you expect that on a flat surface?
That you go the same distance to the west and you wind up at different points.
Okay, how did they measure the curvature as opposed to a flat distance? How do they differentiate the two?
No, I'm saying the measurements are evidence of the sphere itself.
Yeah, but how they
The fact that
differentiate it? How they differentiate it?
what do you mean? How did they differentiate it? Explain that.
Okay, so you're telling me they took a measurement and they said that this is what we'd expect on a sphere. Okay, point one that
No,
I'm going to
that's not
challenge.
what they
Let's get
said.
back to that. Point two being, how did they differentiate that from it being flat?
They weren't even worrying about that at the time. These are just measurements from the same principal meridian, 6 miles to the west, and when the one from the south goes up to the north to meet back with that southern baseline of the one to the north, the end of the townships do not meet up, and the beginning of the townships do not meet up, and that's exactly what you would expect on a sphere.
Okay, are they serving straight lines or curved lines?
So the principal meridian would be like the great circles, so they're straight, and then the baselines are what you call standard parallels.
Right, so they are using a point of convergence in the sky, and they're going straight lines toward it.
Okay, but they're using the same method to go the same distance, and for some reason, the ones to the north always wind up going a little bit further to the west. Why is that?
Well, because they're using a point of convergence instead of points of parallel.
What do you mean?
They're using the North Pole as a single reference point of convergence in order to canter the two lines together so that they meet at that point, rather than using parallel lines that don't meet. They're not using parallel longitudinal lines. I get that. So how do you prove that the Earth is a globe out of this?
Well, you see thousands of these townships, and you always see this pattern of the township to the north, their section lines do not match with yours. It's just like a common occurrence every single time you go north, because even though you're measuring the same distance, Earth is a sphere, so you would expect you go for. I mean, do you at least agree with that? That if you were drawing standard parallels on a sphere from the same principal meridian, that the ones that are north towards the poles would always go a little bit further than the ones at the equator and or to the south as you go to the equator? You do agree that's exactly what would happen, right?
Yeah, that can happen on a sphere, but a sphere isn't the only choice you have available to make that happen on. Secondly,
what other ones you got?
Well, you can treat these as straight line radials instead of great circle routes, and you're still going in a straight line. You haven't measured drop over distance, for one point. For two, I have a big question about this. How do you get and communicate where you are when you begin?
It's all based off the same initial point. So the initial point,
what is that
and then
point?
you from that it's arbitrary. It doesn't matter. It's an
Okay, but
arbitrary
how do you
initial point.
communicate? How do you communicate that arbitrary point so it doesn't become arbitrary?
Oh, you put a giant marker in the ground.
Okay,
There's
yes.
pictures. Yeah, there's pictures of them.
Great.
In all
So now
these
you got one point. So then you measure yourself out to another point. How do you communicate where that is in reference to the first point?
What do you mean communicate out? That's such a weird way to phrase
No,
things.
when you measure out to put a second point in the ground, how do you communicate where that is with respect to the first point?
Oh, you set markers like every mile. What do you mean?
Okay, so still far there's no globe.
No, like, so the pattern of the townships that to the north, their township lines start further to the west than the ones to the south. That's evidence of a globe because that's exactly what you would expect.
Well, how do you know you're further west?
Because there's
Again,
markers in the ground.
yeah, but we're communicating. Yeah, with respect to what? How do you say you're further west? How do you know you're further west?
With respect to the principal meridian.
Right. So right now you're baking in a globe in the first instance. You're already using a line of longitude, which is an arc.
No, you're using your
segment.
principal meridian.
Your principal
it's
meridian
arbitrary.
connects
It's an
the
arbitrary
North
line.
Pole
It doesn't matter.
your principal meridian connects the north celestial pole to the south celestial pole. And on a globe, it connects the North Pole to the South Pole. So you're already baking in curvature geometry.
How so?
Because a meridian is an arc. You're assuming there's already an arc.
You said these measurements can be explained on other objects. So, like, how is this
I'm
exclusive to
explaining how
globe
this
now?
is done. So as you go along and you plot and stake out your points, you're baking it into a presupposition of an arc. And when you communicate your position, you'll communicate coordinates, which correspond to your parallel and your meridian, your latitude and longitude. You're already baking in the globe geometry from the get-go.
No, you're just measuring distances.
No, well, you're measuring distances, but to what degree of accuracy do you need? Do you understand? Okay, if I were to take, let me explain this to you. Okay.
Did you want me to answer the question?
I know the answer. I'm not asking a question I don't already know the answer to. The answer is you're baking in the geometry to presuppose globe, and you're not doing
That's not a margin of error.
You're not doing it within the margin of error that's able to differentiate globe from flat.
What's the margin of error that's required?
So you can believe you're on a globe the entire time.
What's the margin of error that's required?
That's a great question. Why don't you go tell me? Because you're the one that's making the claim that you're measuring the globe.
You said you knew the answer. You just said you knew all these answers.
I do know.
So you're gatekeeping?
No, I'm not gatekeeping.
Sounds like you're gatekeeping.
I'm exposing your ignorance to the audience while I go fish out my derivations for you that I can post in the side chat.
I do know like the acceptable margins of error for these measurements.
What is an acceptable margin of error? Can you express it in a percentage?
No, I'm not going to give the answer because I'm going to gatekeep like you. Until you tell me what the required margin of error is, then I'm just going to gatekeep the information you.
I'll post what the difference is, and then you can tell me if this falls within the margin of error, okay? And then I want you to source for me how you know that the margin of error is what you claim it to be. If I were to take 100
manuals. There's public manuals.
Here's what we'll do.
That's how I know.
If I take 100 square miles, okay, of a globe, 100 by 100 square, okay? This is like draping it's like draping a blanket on a gigantic ball. But the four corners are draping down. So each of the sides of the four corners are forming arcs. So I got 100 square mile swath of the globe. How flat is that? To what degree of accuracy is that flat? The answer is 100 square mile swath, 100 by 100 miles, is 99.37% flat.
Okay.
Right. So over 100 miles, you need a degree of accuracy that is greater than 99.37%. To the degree in order to differentiate between a flat and a globe Earth by your surveying methods. So if I were to be a surveyor and I go, hey boss, I completed the site survey, I am 99.37% accurate that this is 100 miles by 100 miles on a globe. I would not have the accuracy at that point required to differentiate that from a flat Earth at 99.37% accuracy.
Okay.
Right. So how do you know you're 99.37% accurate? Well, you take the geometry and you compare it to a flat surface. Okay? So if you have a globe, the formula is going to be one of your legs, in this case 100, divided by 4 times the radius of the ball. This is spherical geometry. So it'd be 100 divided by 15,836, and then you subtract all that from 1 to get 99.37%. But how do I know this exists in reality? I would need a way to differentiate that. So now I've measured 100 square mile swath to 99.37% accuracy. I still haven't achieved a standard that is accurate enough to differentiate it from a flat Earth. How do I do that? I mean, GPS systems aren't this accurate.
They're way more accurate.
Not this accurate. 99.37,
Well, maybe not
better
the
than
GPS on your
99.37%
T-Mobile, but
over 100 miles square.
the GNS receiver on that I have. Oh yeah, no, it's very accurate and very precise.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, ionospheric disturbances that you don't even know about are fucking with its precision.
You mean like the PDOP and like all that stuff?
That's part of it, yeah. Space weather, yeah.
Yeah, that's all accounted for. It's measured, and
Nobody can predict space weather, bro.
So basically, what happens is when the PDOP is too high, you don't take the shot at the time. That's how you do it, and you actually can like program these things where, say for example, the latency of the connection between the satellites and the base station is like 7-8 seconds instead of like 1 second or 2 seconds. Well, yeah, you're not going to be as accurate. So it's literally like I can make the settings in my thing where I'm doing an average observation, say like 100 measurements over a span of 2 minutes. I can set it where, like, say the range is like a half a foot horizontal and like a half a foot vertically. I can just choose not to accept those measurements and wait till I have better conditions and the range goes down and I have a better standard deviation. And that's when I accept those positions. And then I do that a couple times. So extremely accurate and extremely precise, as long as you know what you're doing.
As long as you know what you're doing, so it's subject to user error. Okay.
Yeah, obviously. Why would a machine not be? Why would a machine not be subject to? Yeah, say for example, I put in the wrong height of the receiver. That's a user error. Yeah, and then you would get the wrong information. Of course, it's subject to user error.
Right. So what if
Why
you
wouldn't
flip
it be?
out? What if you flip out the datum and use a different one than the one that you were asked
And
to
you
use?
would get the wrong elevations.
How do you know it's wrong?
Oh, because when I'm standing on the ground and it says I'm in negative 70 feet below mean sea level, I know that's the wrong answer.
How do you know? How do you know that's wrong? You're just providing.
How do I know that I'm not
Yeah. How do
70
you know
feet
that's
under
wrong?
How do I know that I'm not underneath 70 feet of mean sea level?
Yeah.
Really? Do I really
really
actually need to explain that?
You actually do. Okay, let's say you're in Kansas.
Oh, because I'm breathing air.
Okay, dude. So you swap out like WGS84 for NAD27, and you get the wrong numbers.
No, I'm not talking about the geoid or the ellipsoid that I'm using. I'm just talking about the zone that I'm in. If I put the wrong zone.
Oh, I was talking about what goes a level deeper than that, which is the reference ellipsoid on which the zone is superimposed.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. You can swap those out. You can swap out like EGM 96 for
because when you're
EGM
doing
2002 and get a different geoid, and you'll get entirely different results. And you have no way to know which one is actually true. You have to pick the one that is going to be consistent with whatever you're hooking this into.
So the
what
reason,
matters is
yeah, like
consistency,
I can
right? What
explain
matters is
this.
consistency, not necessarily absolute accuracy. Instead, what matters is relative accuracy.
So what you fail to realize is that surveys are done to secure people's properties, like the area of the land that they have.
I don't fail to
So,
understand that.
so basically, there are laws where, say, for example, you have a survey or you have a property that has a deed that says that it's called out to certain markers with a certain amount of measurements. And let's say someone like resurveys it and they find out that those distances are actually not accurate. It's actually measured to be a longer distance. Well, guess what? It doesn't matter if it's measured to be a longer distance or anything, because the markers hold this right because it's written into the deed. So those take precedence. So there's all these little things. So
I'm
the
glad you
reason
brought
why
that up.
the reason why we can swap out different ellipsoids and different geoids and do these things is because when you're doing a retracement survey, you have to take in account that's how they did the survey at the time. So that's
Uh-huh.
how you have to do the survey again to do a retracement survey.
So how do you know that you're not, or that you are accurate today? And to what degree of accuracy?
The specifications are in the equipment. What do you mean?
Yeah, I know that doesn't tell me anything. How do they know that that's correct? All right.
Well, so for example, I can take out my GNS receiver. I can set a couple points in the ground. I can take the measurements on them, and then I can set up completely different equipment and do a backsite and check and see if I get accurate results.
Yeah,
And I
but
do.
the
And then I
point
can
is,
take out
these points are
an actual
being.
100. Then I can take out a tape and I can measure the distance on the tape and see how accurate that is. And I can
Yeah,
like
how
see
accurate
that
do you
like,
need to
yeah.
be? How accurate do you need to be? Because over 100 miles, you need
It
to be
depends on the
99.37% accurate.
it depends
And
on the type of survey you're doing
yeah,
and
I know.
which
And over
on the contract.
shorter
And
distances, it's
there's like nine.
exponentially greater
I don't know.
levels of accuracy you
I
need
thought you
over
wanted me
shorter
to answer the
distances at 100
question.
miles.
I don't.
I'm
I
going to
don't
read.
know.
I'm going to read some
Did
quotes.
you
Okay,
want me
this
to
is right
answer the
up your
question?
alley. I'm going to read some quotes for you from your own
Oh,
discipline.
from
That's
what?
right up your alley. Okay.
From what? What are you reading from?
Okay. I'm going to read this. All right. Position errors caused by
From what?
GPS blunders. University of Connecticut. Thomas Myers. In practice, a total station makes a flat Earth assumption so that the vertical components of measurements can be removed with simple trigonometry. This practice essentially projects the measurements into the horizontal plane defined by the local gravitational normal vector, preventing major horizontal errors in GPS point derivation.
When was this written?
2005.
Yeah, there's
Another
been
one.
vast improvements since
Vast improvements.
2005.
Oh, yeah. Like
Yes.
they didn't know that the Earth was a globe in 2005. Okay, let me
No, I'm not
continue.
talking about that. I'm talking about with the accuracy and the
Get the fuck
precision of
out
the
of here.
GPS receivers.
Get the fuck
What do
out
you
of
mean
here.
get the fuck out of here?
You
It's
guys
just a
thought they
fact.
landed on the moon in 1969,
You don't
bro. Like,
think
come
that
on. Yeah,
technology
come on. You
hasn't.
guys thought they landed on the moon back. Come on. Earl Burkholder.
So
Okay, this is
for
from
anyone interested,
designing a local
right now the
coordinate
piece of
system.
equipment I have is called a
Designing local.
Viking.
Listen, I got another
Now
quote for
this
you, buddy.
GPS
I got
rover,
another
this
quote. This is for the
GNS
audience. All
receiver
right, you're
is
not going to
so
run.
advanced.
Listen,
It has
buddy.
a tilt function.
You're not going to run the show. Okay, this is my show. Okay. I got another quote for the audience. Okay. Earl Burkholder, designing a local coordinate system. Global Kogo Incorporated 2001 website I have ready. Now, better measurements can be made with equipment such as electronic distance measurements, GPS, and photogrammetric mapping. Systematic error corrections for the grid scale factor are required to preserve the accuracy of modern measurements, like what you were saying. A local coordinate system tangent plane treats a portion of the Earth's surface as if it was flat and allows spatial data users to preserve the accuracy of modern measurements. Here's another one from M. Grabby. Geolocation using direction finding angles, 2010. This is from Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab, Technical Digest, Volume 31. Direction finding angles are the inputs required by a geolocation algorithm, which is typically an extended Kalman filter, the magnitude of elevation angles used during data collection will typically be small, say no greater than 15 degrees, so that the conical line of sight angle and the azimuth will be close in value, validating the flat Earth assumption for sensor accuracy. Mark Tapley, Evolution of Flat Earth Approximation Results for Geopotential Missions, 1997, AIA, Journal of Spacecraft and Rockets. Simplified calculations can approximate the formal uncertainties and estimates of the spherical harmonic coefficients. The calculations model the Earth locally as a plane, producing errors negligible for wavelengths shorter than the radius of the Earth, making the simple flat Earth approximation much more powerful for refining GPS tracking data accuracy. Next, the Federal Geographic Data Committee, Geospatial Positioning Accuracy Standards, U.S. Geological Survey, 1998. Quote, coordinate conversions from geographic latitude, longitude, and ellipsoid height to local Cartesian, easting, northing, and orthometric height are required for assessing localized positional accuracy, because comparing raw geodetic coordinates introduces global distortion into local spatial tests. Next, Giordano et al., UAV data collection, co-registration, LiDAR, and photogrammetric surveys for coastal monitoring, remote sensing 2025. The indirect georeferencing is based on the computation of the transformation parameters from the local reference system to the absolute one, exploiting conjugate elements for the point cloud geometry, allowing a positioning correction method such as real-time kinematic RTK, which are ground towers, used to improve final model accuracy. I've got plenty more where this came from. Okay. How about the American Society of Civil Engineers? Using the state plane coordinate system surface creates excessive errors in engineering and boundary surveys, like what you were talking about, Duncan. When SPCS started in 1933, acceptable distance error was larger than SPCS linear distortion. Currently, typical distance error of instrument is smaller than inherent SPCS linear distortion. RTK, ground tower GPS, that's RTK GNSS, can produce errors as low as plus or minus 0.026 feet. Wow. Yeah. So they're not using satellites either to refine your geometric calculations using GPS. In order for them to use GPS accurately, assuming global coordinates, spherical coordinates, they still have to use ground towers and do a mathematical conversion of the flat Earth into a predefined reference ellipsoid. The reference ellipsoid defines distances between coordinates. There's a difference between WGS84 and GRS80 and NAD27 and the area ellipsoid, the Bessel ellipsoid, and all the other ellipsoids that have ever been done for the past 200 years. Their geometries do not match each other. You could take the geoid, any modern geoid, and you can project it onto any reference ellipsoid and you'll get different values. You can take the geoid and project it onto a flat Earth. You could take the geoid and project it onto a dinosaur nugget. You could take any reference ellipsoid and plug it into your freaking total station and you'll come up with different numbers. As you told the audience, it's going to be wrong. Well, how do you know it's wrong? In order to determine that, you have to conduct an external validation. You're not going to get away from this by swapping one coordinate system for another. You're not going to say this modern one is more valid than the older one because you haven't substantiated that, right? You can assume that it's better because it's newer. It's still an assumption. You haven't proven that with the data. And the only way to do that is to differentiate, which is what I was asking you to do from the very onset of this, like almost a half an hour ago. How to differentiate the flat Earth geometry from the global geometry? Well, I mean, you told everyone that they didn't. They just measured it out and it fit their expected results and they're happy with it. That's not good enough, dude. You're not going to be able to resolve this problem by going in circles. And by popping in different reference ellipsoids, getting different results, and then saying, you know what, I believe the one that came most recent is the best. Why? Because it had the most patch updates. This isn't a Steam game, bro, where you need to update your freaking game to the newest version to cut out all the glitches. We're talking about measuring reality on the ground without the aid of coordinates to provide calculated distances against which we measure to, and instead just measure the fucking distances themselves. Right? And then once you do that, once you measure the actual distances, you can compare it to the calculated distances. And you say, okay, here's the margin of error I had with my measurement. Let's look at the globe calculated distance. And you know what? I'm telling you, if you were to conduct a survey over 100 square miles, you'd need to prove that you're more accurate than 99.37%. And that's what I'm asking you to do. And you've not been able to do it. Nobody's been able to do it. But here's the funny thing. We can get that level of precision with the very means that you claim to use in your freaking profession, right? Lasers, electronic distancing measurements, EDM. And here's a funny thing, okay? So EDM, like we're talking electronic distance measurements, lasers and shit. This is from a paper by who? Jesse Kozlowski? Yeah, Maine surveyor, the anti-flat earther that likes to present us his so-called spherical excess measurements where he's reifying the globe. Yeah, that guy. He actually wrote a paper in 2006 before this flat earth topic blew up. Want to know the name of the paper? Name of the paper is GPS and EDM Measurements, Why Don't They Match? From the Surveyors Association of West Jersey, 2006. Taylor Weissman and Taylor Surveyor Association of New Jersey. It's a company he worked for then. The quote, okay? Yeah, this is from Maine Surveyor. This isn't Jesse Path of Light. This is Jesse Kozlowski. Two different Jessies. All right, he says in his paper, the first thing you'd probably do is measure the distance with your electronic distancing measurement device, EDM. After reducing the slope distance to a horizontal distance, pause. Anybody know what that means? You might record something very close to 354.838 meters, as you would expect, right, on a globe. But as it turns out, this distance actually is the ground distance between these two marks. When you inverse the pair of state plane coordinates, you get a distance that's very different from the one you measured. The inverse grid length using the coordinate calculated distance is 354.8048 meters, which is 33 millimeters shorter than what you measured. What's going on here? Why is it that when we measure straight line distances, they don't match the coordinate calculated distances? That's what he's asking. Why is it after I conduct this mathematical operation, I get a number that is different from what I should have expected or what I actually measured? Over a distance of 354 meters or thereabouts, the mathematical curvature and sea level reductions that he forced upon the GPS coordinates physically stole 33 millimeters over an inch of distance. So if an engineer cuts a steel beam to the GPS length, the beam is going to fall through the gap. The flat planar measurement that's actually done is the only true reality here. Yeah, Jesse Kozlowski, Maine surveyor. I mean, he didn't write that last part, that part I said. He was saying, holy shit, we have a problem here. All right, go ahead. Yeah, thanks for piping up. I was done talking to the other guy. I don't know if he's still here. No, he deafened.
The Earth is flat. It is what it is.
Okay, good. Thanks for sharing. Okay, maybe I can continue. I've got quote after quote, citation after citation here. Montana Department of Transportation, Autodesk. By the way, they're like the standard for civil engineering software. Wisconsin State Cartographer's Office. I've got the University of Connecticut. I already went through that one. Oh, man. What else do I have? Montana Department of Transportation. The Flagstaff in Arizona. Yeah, here's one from NOAA in Arizona. Time after time, they're like, look, the globe gives us inaccurate results. We have to use what we measure in reality. And what are they doing in reality? They're doing freaking line of sight angles, point to point to point, 180-degree triangles. All right, so this is from David Zilkowski et al. User Guidelines for the Single Base Real-Time GNSS Positioning, version 2.1, National Geodetic Survey, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, 2010. Quote, it is possible to automatically apply a combined factor to these generated points to reflect the project scale and ellipsoid height factors at the project site. However, the user must be aware this will create ground coordinates that look similar to grid coordinates but differ from the grid values at the same point. For example, in Flagstaff, Arizona, it has an elevation of 7,000 feet. The distance between a pair of state plane coordinates is less than the actual ground distance by approximately 2.3 feet per mile. Conventional, that is to say terrestrial, survey instruments can readily detect this magnitude of distortion. What? We were talking about the degree of error, okay? Which can lead to confusion about which distances are quote-unquote correct. This workshop includes detailed instructions on the optimal design of a low distortion projection for a local tangent plane. What is happening here, folks? If you scale this up to understand what's being implied. In Flagstaff, the map they used to project a spherical Earth onto a geodetic map artificially shrinks reality by 2.3 feet per mile. That's what they were saying, and they proved it. Over a 5-mile highway expansion, the geodetic grid is missing 11.5 feet of asphalt. Over a 10-mile light rail project, the geodetic grid is missing 23 feet of steel tracks. This National Geographic survey officially admits that a terrestrial survey instrument like a robotic total station, which can shoot a perfectly straight laser across a flat plane, by the way, easily detects that the GPS grid is wrong relative to the physical reality of the laser transit. If an engineer uses the spherical state plane grid, the spherical one, in order, I guess, to create prefab concrete drainage pipes or something over like a 10-mile trench, the crew's going to run out of pipe 23 feet before they reach the end of the ditch if they use the globe. But if they use the actual real-world laser-conducted measurements, they won't. The physical Earth demands 23 more feet of material than the globe math says exists. The flat terrestrial measurement is the true correct distance, which is exactly why the federal government wrote this manual to teach surveyors like you, Duncan Darth, how to mathematically flatten the globe back out so that their bridges, pipes, and highways actually fit together.
Is there a way for us to see like these differences you're talking about? I'm in agreement, but is there a difference in scale as the ratio of how much you're off per millimeter per mile or whatever we're going to use as the ratio when you're south of the equator? Because I'm just curious. I'm curious because like 87 to 90% of the entire global population, the entire world's population lives north of the equator. So are there tests done further south of the equator? Are they more off or are they more on? That's my question. I am curious now that you're bringing up like the GPS, the coordinates and stuff, because I'm very familiar with like the northern hemisphere, but I am not familiar whatsoever with the southern hemisphere, nor have I ever been to the southern hemisphere, nor have I ever done any. Yeah.
So we got some crazy issues. So, you know, what immediately brought to mind was, I think it was it the King of England who owned Australia at the time that they laid down the track for their railroad system connecting east and west, like I guess Perth to freaking Canberra or something. So they had a railway system like the U.S. I think around the same time, if not a little bit later, to connect their country's logistics together. And it was decreed by law, I think by the king. Was it the prime minister? I don't know my Australian history, but there's an actual law or edict you can read. It's been posted in our home server, where they demanded that they treat the Earth as flat for all measurements in order to to maintain a consistent standard of accuracy.
Yeah, just to be accurate.
So, yeah, and Australia, as a country, has its own surveying datum that is different from what's used in other places around the world. The geometry is different.
Yeah,
I think we still curve it, but it's different.
I think the geometry in the South Pole would be much more off, or in the South Hemisphere would be way more off. Like if you're going by coordinates and then comparing it to line of sight, just because to make a coordinated model of a globe based on measurements of a flat plane, you would be more and more off the further you got from your center, right? Like no matter what, you're going to be more off at the further points from what your known center is.
Yeah, they don't have a visible point of reference in the sky that is fixed like we do, right? I mean, we got Polaris, and even then we know Polaris so well that we know it's not entirely fixed. It actually traces a very tiny arc in the sky throughout the night.
At what degree
it's got like a half a degree radius. Huh?
At what degree south do you stop seeing the North Star? Do you stop seeing Polaris? Or
yeah,
sorry,
that's a tough
I don't know. It
question
might
too.
be.
How do you?
It might be a north degree, but I want to know that because.
Right, because the globe is based off of the stars, right? And so things tend to break down in the south because you lose that fixed point of reference. And what they use instead are derivations. Like we know where sigma octantis is without assisted vision because we can use the Southern Cross and the assumption of a spherical coordinate system to point to where sigma octantis is. So they use other points. They'll use like Orion, which flies over the, I guess, the equatorial region.
I guess they would have to use, depending on the time of year, right? Depending on the day of year it is, they would have to.
Yes.
They would have to measure it from a different angle of.
They do.
Like based on a compass, right? Okay, so that's what you would do on a flat Earth.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a very highly technical point.
Am I wrong? You would do that on a flat Earth. Like that would not be a liable way, given all the motion on a globe model. It wouldn't be liable information, but yet it's like the way that they use.
Well, I mean, we've got the information cataloged. So for the audience listening, what he's describing is sidereal motion of the stars. If you were to pick out a random star, north or south, doesn't matter which part of the Earth you're on. If you were to pick out a star and look at it at the same time every day, it's going to appear in a different spot in the sky.
Yep.
It's going to migrate to the north and then migrate to the south. The entire complex of all the stars in the sky kind of breathes in and out, almost like a helical motion. It's not, the stars don't trace actual circles. They trace over the course of a year spirals like a slinky.
Like it's oscillating, like there's an oscillation to the rotation.
Yeah.
I see
like
what
NLMs.
you're saying. Yeah.
Every single star. And except for Polaris, which actually technically it does it too, but it's so tiny, it's negligible. But you can read in celestial navigation manuals corrections for Polaris, which can be like half a degree off and can throw you, by their accounts, about 30 nautical miles off course if you're not doing the Polaris correction. So even Polaris, I mean, they say it's perfectly still. Like, no, it's not. Like, you can do time. There are very few examples, but there are examples of time-lapse photography of Polaris where it traces an arc. Anyway, that being said,
I don't want to change the specific subject of what we're talking about, but this is also bringing up in mind according to the globe model, is magnetic north directly opposite from magnetic south, which there's technically no magnetic south, right? It's all in comparison. It's not.
No, it's not a conspiracy. So it's worse than that.
I know. I didn't think that it was.
What if I told you? What if I told you right now, for the audience listening, this is going to sound crazier than dog shit, but I'm absolutely 100% correct. You can Google this, the World Magnetic Model, I don't know. The last one I looked at was like 2008, and I'm sure they've done a newer one than that. The World Magnetic Model depicts two south magnetic poles. One of them is like southwest of Australia, deep in the Indian Ocean near Antarctica, and the other is rather fixed above Vostok Base, or on Vostok Base, or below Vostok Base, where Russia controls that massive research facility near that the sixth largest lake in the world. It has life in it that looks nothing like other life on Earth. So, I mean, I had the great fortune, I don't want to like dox myself. I had the great fortune of working with a geologist for years, who is also an RF engineer, who he's old as dirt. I don't know if he's alive anymore. During the Cold War, he did two tours in Antarctica, one during the Cold War and one after the wall fell, as a guest scientist from the United States at Vostok Base with the Russians to study the magnetic field in the ionosphere, as well as the geological weirdness going on down there. And he told me some interesting stuff. He also had been to McMurdo a couple times. So, and that's what happens, I guess, if you got a top secret clearance and you're a scientist and divorced and your kids are grown up. You can go do that shit. You got good teeth.
I have clearance, but all of my clearance and everything I do for work is in accordance with the Northern Hemisphere, and specifically surveillance defense for North America, like
you don't have to go that far, man. Listen, I used to be in the club too a long time ago, but yeah, it's all right, man. You don't have to go that far. I believe you, and I trust that's the case.
We've talked before, Yoder.
Yep.
You know me.
I mean, I used to go to work every day and, see situation report on JWICs on like satellites and shit. So I've been there.
I still go to work every day, and I still witness, whether it be with my own eyes or whether it be through equipment, that the Earth is, I'll just put it this way. The Earth is not the shape that is taught. The Earth is not the model that is taught. I'm just saying because you always got to consider the possibilities. If it were to be a globe, it would have to be so insanely massive for what we see and what we observe. It would have to be like, I don't even know I don't even know the exact size that a globe would have to be to measure flat on the known distances that we have here and in the realm that we live in, but it is too big. I'm pretty sure it would equate to bigger than the sun is compared to Earth and what they teach it to be in size, right?
Yeah, listen, I first came across flat earthers in like the early mid 2000s, call it that. We're talking like 2004 to 2009. In my own field, and I worked with people who were RF engineers.
2014 is when I was a true-hearted, like knew for myself flat earther. Was 2014.
I came across it before 2014 at first, and I thought it was crazier than dog shit. But there were people in my office at the time who worked on technology that they swore required it. And I remember there's this one lady I worked with. She's a peach. Like, she'd bring in like oatmeal raisin cookies to work, and she'd also be like, "I'm telling you, Dr. Yoder, that you got to pay attention to ground wave propagation. Skywave propagation's all bullshit. It's all ground wave." That's like more than 20 years ago, man. And she'd say shit like this, and I'd be confused. I'd be like, "What the fuck is she talking about?" But she was an expert in her
some crazy old lady.
Yeah, but she's worked. I mean, she's crazy old lady, but she's putting her hands on some of the coolest tools and equipment that you can imagine, and it's like, wow. And I would hear stuff like this. I worked with a guy who did like security for satellite construction logistics. I don't know what else to call it. I'm trying to be careful.
So,
And he's like, Dr. Yoder, guess what? Guess what? I have something to tell you. And this guy's old as dirt too. He's probably also dead. He's like, the Apollo moon missions were fake and the Earth is flat. And this is something that I just kind of figured out. And this is like 2008, man. Like this is way before the whole flat Earth thing came out. The electromagnetic propagation over flat Earth document, the U.S. Army Research Lab document that's been going around, it's not really like ultra definitive for reasons I won't get into. They talk about like how you construct a horizontally versus vertically mounted dipole and which one puts the greatest electron density on the target. It's basically describing how to construct a weapon system to cook things at a distance. And they're basically saying, yeah, it works over flat Earth. We can use these equations from like the 1920s where we model electromagnetic propagation as if it's bouncing between two half planes. That's two flat surfaces. Boom, bing, 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 bing. And then cooking a target like a turkey at a distance of like 30 or 40 miles using like 1.2 gigahertz and this amount of power. Using an antenna constructed in this manner and oriented in this manner. And it's like, holy shit, like they are modeling flat Earth and saying, we got to do it this way. And I came across that document like 20 years ago, and people were like, holy shit, what the fuck? I mean, people were talking to me about flat Earth when they were looking at that too.
Here's another thing. I know how, for example, radar works, right? I have a radar on my sailboat. I can see things depending on the height of the object and the height of the waves, because it's only anything that is physically blocking my view of the object. On a calm day, when the sea is calm and my radar is above any wave, I can see literally 50 miles one direction. So
yeah,
I can technically see 50 miles in any direction. I can see a 6-foot tall John boat 50 miles away accurately. I can see over 50 miles away, but not accurately because I don't have a super insanely nice radar. I have a nice radar, but not one that can see accurately over 50 miles. If there was a cargo ship, yeah, I could probably see it 75, 100 miles away.
Factors, sure.
What does?
Yeah, but the point is you're getting some kind of signal return. At least something is bouncing back.
A physical signal, a literal physical signal. It's not like, oh, it's viewing it over X and Y, Z, whatever the purpose. It's a literal signal. Like,
yeah, have you ever looked into like over the horizon radar, like the bullshit that is claimed to work by?
I have seen hundreds of miles. I've seen over 1,000 miles using equipment. There's nothing that anybody could tell me that will change what I believe.
Yeah. How do you bounce a signal off the ceiling down to a target around the curve of the Earth and then have that target reflect the signal back to the same point on the ceiling and then back to your antenna?
Well,
that's how they claim over the horizon radar works, bro.
You didn't know refraction also bends waves and frequencies? Come on, man.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy what it can do. Yeah, and like there's like, the polarization, like when you go through this kind of condition, like it has a left-handed polarized and then it becomes a right-handed polarized, and it's like, what the fuck is going on?
I have two friends that one of them is more open-minded. They're my only two friends who I would say don't question the globe, because not all my friends are flat earthers, but all except these two question the globe. They definitely don't believe it's a globe, but I think they're just too egotistical to say like that it's a flat earth. I don't think they just don't want to claim a model essentially, but I'm the same way. So I can't blame them for not wanting to say the earth is flat. They just know it's not a globe. Anyway, my one friend who I've known a lot longer, who's a globrrrr, his one question to me is always, well, what's underneath the earth then? And I say, well, I don't know. We've never been further than 12 miles. So you tell me, how do you know that it's all this and that? And every time I tell him, regardless, that doesn't matter. We need to measure for curvature, right? That's like, there's a claim being made that there is X amount of curve. That means the equation is this. That means we can go out and take a measurement, apply the equation, and get the answer for the amount of curvature we should take. And if you also want to take into account the refractive index, you can still take that into account and find that even with the refractive index taken into account, there's no curvature.
Yeah, dude. So funny you bring that up, and to rope this into the prior conversation we had with surveying, refraction was not stable enough to explain curvature. Even though the people invoked this when they were surveying the Earth and needed it to be a globe, and they concluded refraction was doing it. So they came up with the deflection of the vertical. They're like, oh, we solved it. Gravity is pointing in different directions depending where you are on the Earth. So you could be setting up a plumb line and you're shooting upwards or shooting downwards. And there's refraction on top of it.
So the refractive index, how it's measured. Now I'm gonna make some of these statements. The refractive index is on a percentage scale, right? So you have 0 to 100%, and that's seen in a K value of 1.00 being the highest. Actually, if you try to use a refractive calculator, it won't let you put 1.00 in. You must use you must use 0.99. But you can never actually have a 100% refractive index. And the equation is made off of to put it into perspective, the mirage that we experience when there's a temperature difference from one surface to the air that is directly above that surface, and then from the temperature of that specific air pocket and the next temperature surface air pocket above it. And where you get a mirage that happens. You get a double mirage technically, right? The first mirage is directly on the ground. You could have a second mirage a couple feet above that will overlap that first mirage. It'll be stronger. It depends on your viewpoint. If you're standing 6 foot high, you will see a mirage, but it won't be that good. If you're at 12 feet high, you probably will not see a mirage. If you're at 3 feet or 4 feet off the ground, you'll see a mirage, but the closer you get to the ground, the stronger the effect gets, because you're putting your line of sight. You're putting your line of sight in line with the temperature gradient, right? Now, there's never been a 0.99 K value of refraction tested. There's been, I think, like 40 to 50 at the most ever tested in an area, right? And I forget the equation exactly, don't make me explain it to you, but the four things that they take into effect are the humidity, the barometric pressure, the water and or ground temperature, mostly water temperature, because you're looking over long distances over water most of the time, and the air temperature. And given those four values, you're able to, there's no exact equation. It does not give you an exact. It's a between this and that type of thing. So, for example, you'll say, here's my humidity, my air temperature, my barometric pressure, and my water temperature. What should be my expected refraction? And you'll get something back like 0.13 to 0.17 K value of refraction. So you can see that as 13 to 17% refraction on the percentage index. And that would be considered above average. 40 would be considered immaculate, the most refraction you could get. You should be able to see insanely far. But also what's funny is, according to refraction arguments, people who are arguing for refraction, and you take the dates and times that they're talking about, and you also take the literal clarity index, how clear the air is, they line up like almost perfectly. So it's almost used like, oh, this day is more clear, there's less haze, so that means there's more refraction. But really, that's not, you're not experiencing more refraction. You don't actually experience refraction. Over shorter distances, you'll experience a mirage if you're very close to the ground. But if you even go up 10 feet, 8 feet, you're not going to have that effect you're not going to have that great of an effect. And even if
the
it was at
mirage
100,
gives way to clear line of sight. Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's even more than that. It's I guess, for the audience listening, when he's saying mirage, I think he's talking about an inverted image.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So like when you could go down a really straight, flat road, and you could lay on the sidewalk. You could, if you want to get the best effect, on a hot day when the sun's beaming, and it could be breezy outside, if you want, but preferably still air. Lay on the sidewalk and look down the sidewalk, and you'll see that people appear to be shorter than they are. But then if you stand up and look from your normal view perspective, the mirage is gone and you actually can see the entirety of the person in their full height, right? It's just all perspective and the amount of the temperature difference, the amount of the mirage that you're receiving to your eyes depending on your perspective height.
So in different disciplines, there's going to be two different ways to express the same idea. One is K factor and the other is K coefficient. So a K factor could be like 7 over 6 R, where 7 over 6 gives you, was it like 16.67% over the R value. But a K coefficient would be expressed as a percentage or as a decimal number.
Yeah, exactly.
So in one, the radius of the Earth is absolutely baked in, but the other not necessarily, by my understanding. But either way, I mean, they're describing the same phenomenon, but using different ways to communicate it. It can lead to confusion. I see Rayleigh criterion. Yeah, he posted exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I got a table here I want to share with you, and I've posted this before and talked about it a lot. This is helpful to the discussion. So there's a difference between the terrestrial refraction that Glober's claim exists, the standard 7 over 6R, whereby basically they inflate the Earth's radius by 16% to explain why it looks so flat. Yeah. So, hey, I know Earth is a globe because Earth looks so flat. Now, there's also super refraction. Okay. And super refraction is kind of the same as terrestrial refraction. You're inflating the globe. And then there's subrefraction, which is like shrinking the globe.
Yeah, there is subrefraction where essentially you would experience, you would be experiencing more curvature than what would be expected, which, you can take a time-lapse video through a telescope looking over a long distance at a building or at an object, and you can actually just leave that camera there, do a time-lapse all day, and as you see the temperature gradient change, get a higher difference from one another. At the hotter points of the day, you will literally experience more refraction, but really it's a mirage depending on how close you are to the ground. Like it's not it's not refraction how they explain it to you, because the way they explain it to you is never tested. Like it's testable, but only up to a certain point do you experience it, and then past a certain point you would never experience the maximum expected. You'll never experience more than what is expected, so the only way to we'll do a math equation here in a second. If Yoder wants to help me, if he's available to have like a Earth curvature calculator pulled up with a refractive index.
Sure, yeah. I was about to say, you'll never experience the curvature that's required for them to beg the question in the first instance.
Still pertaining, I mean, I think that Bratton would, if he follows along with this, he'll probably learn something, or at least be able to go do his own research and observations. Math is not that hard. We've all passed math. I'm pretty sure all of us have passed high school math. And not only that, but I don't think that it's imperative to believe that we all just were born flat earthers or woke up one day and said, oh, I'm going to be a flat earther today. We did the math ourselves. We know the math. We know your math. We know what you believe in. We were raised with it, the same that you were, talking to you, Bratton. And we all came to a different conclusion than what we were taught. And so this is why we're here and going over this information and these observations, is to find out why we're not experiencing what we should experience. What is it that we're living on if it's not what they're telling us? So anyway, let's continue. So in the side chat, I'm going to post a couple pictures. This first photo, let me also write here the distance with the photo. Okay, there's that.
Wow,
I'm also going.
dude.
I'm also hold on 1 second. I'm also going to post the coordinates of the coordinates and a screenshot of a Satelloon image that shows us the exact points. And if you wanted to test me or go and like do the research yourself on the coordinates and where they are, where I was, you can test me and you can see exactly what I'm about to show you.
This is good already, man. Yeah, I want this gravy. I haven't seen this before. 229 miles. Looks like an iceberg, maybe Antarctica.
If you go to our Flat Earth server, I'm a librarian. On one of the things, I put all this information in there already. I'm kind of just repolling it from there. There's the coordinates. The first coordinates are where I was standing. The second set of coordinates is the peak. That's public information you can search online yourself if you were curious where Mount McKinley is or where the Peak Denali on Mount McKinley is.
Okay.
Here's a screenshot as well from Google Maps showing the 2 points, Mount McKinley to where I was.
Holy
One
shit.
moment. So that's, by the way, that's 88 miles over water, the rest remainder to 229 over land.
Oh, so it's 88 miles, not 229?
No, it's 229 total miles. 88 miles of that distance is specifically just over water. The remainder
I
is
see
over
now. Okay.
land.
Okay. I looked at the chat just now to see your second image at 20 minutes past the hour. Wow.
View height was 12 feet off of sea level. But if you're going by coordinates and by the time this was taken on June 2nd, 2026 at 2 p.m., just roughly right around 2 p.m. And if you wanted to research this, is that date and time is where you'll search and find the information of the expected refractive index on that day. And you can also add in, if you're using ChatGPT to make it more simple, you can put in the coordinates and the time and day and ask what are the expected refractive index between these 2 points, and you'll get an answer. We can take that into effect later. This is, I'm going to post the same photo, but with a second photo next to it. First photo is that same 229. Second photo is from roughly 50 to 70 miles, less than 70 miles away, but I would say more than 50 miles away, over the water, on the land, same land that the mountain is on, from the exact same degree north. So looking at it from the same exact angle. And you can see that there is almost zero change in what you can see. The height of the mountain is 20,310 feet. That's the very top peak. So given the math, there should be over 34,000 feet of curvature alone blocking that mountain. The very peak of that mountain should be blocked by the whole everything. You should be looking up into the sky, into the horizon, essentially looking off in that direction, including a refractive index of I think 0.33, which actually the expected refraction on that day was 0.13 to 0.17. There should still be over 22,000 feet of curvature covering that mountain. It's only 20,310 feet tall. So,
dude,
if you take into effect maximum, I think that you should only be able to see the very top 6,000 feet of that mountain. But yet you see the entire thing. You see the shoreline across 88 miles as well from a 12. And here's the thing on that date and time. If you search that, I actually was at negative 30 feet sea level going by coordinates. But since it was at low tide and in Alaska, there's like a 30-foot tide. I was actually on sea level. I was like on level with the water, but average sea level, I was negative 30 feet below if you're actually going by GPS and mathematics, right?
It's even better.
I took all the measurements. I did all the math, and there it is for you. You can test my math, and you'll get the same exact. You can go and experience this for yourself. Like,
yeah. That's the thing. We tell everybody to do this, and you did that. You're like, I'm looking at Mount McKinley, MFer. I shouldn't be able to see this here from 33 feet below sea level.
From almost 230 miles away, almost.
Holy crap, dude. Like, Jay Tolan would have to get up in an airplane to see that shit from that far. Like... This is awesome. This is DOS man. Like I need to spend some time with this. I'm going to give you a preliminary. Dr. Amish approves. This is freaking phenomenal, dude.
If you go to the 24/7 Discord server and you scroll down,
I'm there.
You scroll down to 1 second. Let me find it. I think it's literally called 229 DOS man.
And 24/7, like what? 229 DOS man. Do you need what kind of roles do you have in there? Maybe I can hook you up with some roles.
I think I'm librarian. Who did I get roles from?
24/7 librarian?
No. Sorry. 24/7 Flat Earth is the server, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm pretty sure I'm a librarian in there. I have a little thing where
Never
I put
heard of that role. Wait, what server are you in, bro? Like that? I don't know if you're in the server.
Flat Earth Discord.
There's a librarian role?
There's 29,293 members, right? Is that accurate? Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm trying to find my. Let me find it. Who was I added by? That's also my next. I wasn't added by anyone technically, but I'm trying to think who gave me that role.
Dude, yeah, that's weird. Like most of us who run this, I mean, we're like mods over there. I'm like, I never heard of the librarian role.
I'm not. No, I mean, if you check, I've been in here. I've been in the politics server for almost 8 years, specifically for the Flat Earth VC. Like that's why I joined. I've talked to you before. I've talked to a lot of people before. I went and I lived on a sailboat for a year to have some experiences. And like for a full entire 12, almost 12, it was like 11, almost 12 months. Lived on a sailboat and sailed around. And I was inactive for probably 3 years in here. I was inactive. And I didn't remember any of the people I used to talk to in the server or anything like that, you know?
I'm not seeing any activity from you whatsoever in our home server.
I'll find it.
Because, yeah, like, you're not even... I don't see you at all. Like you're there, like you logged in once, but I don't see any roles.
It wasn't Bruno. It was...
No, like you said, you posted this in one of our library channels, like.
Yeah. It was labeled 229, like 229 miles, you know, but just 229 DOS man. I'm pretty sure is what it was labeled.
Like what was labeled?
It was. No, it wasn't him. Dang, who was it? It wasn't Johnny. It wasn't.
It almost sounds like you might be in a fake server that doesn't belong to ours.
No, I mean, I hope not. That'd be sad.
Because I'll show you my screen. Post your So.
Oh wait, yeah. Here it was DJ. DJ gave me library.
Oh, Pickled Mind server. Gotcha. That's okay. That's the other one, bro. Okay. I thought you meant.
Sorry.
No. Yeah. I okay. I'm there too. I'm an owner, so I got you, bro.
It should be labeled 229. I mean, I can't find it. I'm having trouble.
I see it. I got you right here. You got your own channel. 22. Yep, here it is. I pulled it right up in Pickled Minds.
There's all the information.
There it is. I'm gonna bookmark this, man. This is freaking cool. Let me pin that shit. Okay, I'm pinning it. This is worthy of further evaluation. Yeah, you could totally right. You could give 33% over the radius of the Earth, and it's still not going to show up like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have photos of these other things because of like Clarence not allowed to have electronics in certain areas, things like that.
Oh yeah, I get it.
I will one day get measurements and images from over 1,000 feet away. With what I do with work, I do long distance surveillance. I'll put it. I do missile surveillance for North America. So
sounds like you work at MISC or something, or DefSmack.
I mean, I don't want to say the name of the company, but
okay, maybe you heard my acronyms and you know that I know some shit. So
yeah, I don't want to. I could tell you the acronyms, but I mean, I wouldn't even want anyone to get curious and search about it.
That's fine. That's fine. Listen, we've had to report people. I mean, back then, like it was a different organization. It was like we've had to report people for coming in here and like trying to share classified with us. Like
because it's dangerous.
I contacted my DSS rep, who's DSS at the time, and I'm like, dude, I shared all the shit, and I'm like, this guy on Discord was doing this, so I will actively report people trying to divulge classified in here. I will absolutely do it. If you come in here and you're claiming that you got classified shit that nobody should be seeing and that you're sharing, I'm gonna report your ass to my rep.
Same with me. Same with Johnny. Same with Johnny has the same ideology about it. You've probably talked with Johnny a lot.
Yeah. Yep, I have. Yep. So I will happily can your ass, and I will get the fucking Phoebes on you if you come in here and anybody tries to divulge, because that we don't need. Listen, nobody can hide the flat Earth from people.
Like, yeah, you can go out and do it for yourself. Just view it for yourself. Make the observations, take the measurements, and question it.
Yeah. Did you know that actual scientific discoveries cannot be classified? Period. That's actually true. There's no actual natural anything from the natural world cannot be classified, and that's codified within not only the NISPOM but like everything else. I'm not going to get into it.
It's too detrimental to the server and the group and the people within it to share classified information within these areas.
Yeah, I mean,
sure,
totally. You don't need. Nobody needs to do it.
If you want to go talk about it in real life with somebody, go for it. If you want to share that information, go for it, because that's up to you as the individual. But just know you're putting the other people you're telling, or the other person, at jeopardy. You're putting them at jeopardy in a way.
Yeah, and much more than that. Like, I'm not going to get into it. Yeah, man. So listen. I mean, if you're still, sounds like you're still part of the club. I mean, I would implore you also to keep your eyes out, because we get clowns in here who try to dirty us with fruit from the poison tree. Fruit from the poison tree. Don't take it. We don't need it. We don't need these clowns coming in, because if they succeed in injecting that shit into this and it gets around, I mean, it's going to make everybody's lives a living fucking hell, and it's not necessary. The Earth measures flat. I can go out with my fucking camera and prove it, like, tomorrow. Oh.
I'll put it this way: with all the other brothers and sisters that I work with, and like in my profession, there's not one of us that are gatekeepers amongst the other, and we're all very interested individuals. And one of the biggest questions I always get asked is, well, there's no flat earthers, like the amount of flat earth, but it's like, I don't know. In my perspective, everybody that I hang around with, everybody I work with, we all know what's going on based on our profession. It's like in some professions and trades, even, if you're a surveyor, if you're a surveyor, then any surveyor I've met knows. Not every airplane pilot I met knows, but they all have their questions, but yeah, I don't know. I guess it depends on who you surround yourself with and what the professions are, what the knowledge between the individuals is.
So there are people that were up in airborne assets around Tora Bora, looking sideways with high-end optics, peering into the mountainsides that these cave dwellers were setting up camps and operations with. And they were seeing at distances and ranges that would not be allowed if Earth was a globe. I've got some firsthand experience with some of that.
Yeah.
And people in that community talk about this very problem over lunch in a skiff, and they're puzzled too. There's no grand conspiracy like people imagine there has to be for this to occur. People working in various capacities who've done and see things that should not be possible, and are perceived by the outside world to be at the top of the freaking, Illuminati pyramid, are asking the same questions as the rest of us down here. This problem is more psychological and sociological. Maybe in 1,000 years it becomes anthropological and archaeological with even more time. What we're dealing with fundamentally is a cosmology, is a belief, a worldview, a Weltanschauung. And I mean, this is like the Romans who used to believe that the sun was Helios. And Helios was a fire god who commanded a chariot with horses in front of him. And every morning, Helios would send his chariot up into the sky and fly around and then set on the other side. We have a potentially more digestible version of that based off of very materialistic philosophy, where we assign all kinds of things that we can correspond to in our everyday world to things in the sky, in the stars, that we actually have no samples of physically and have never actually studied physically, only observed. So we live in kind of like a weird cultic, materialistic, however still religious, a godless religion kind of world. We've created the Big Bang, which creates an enormous universe, so big that God doesn't need to be present. And then we've assigned billions and billions and billions of years and tens of billions more, and it's now 80 billion years old, and even older than that, putting any creation point of a God further into the past and much further away than anybody can conceive, so as to not be statistically meaningful or useful in any way whatsoever. And we start assigning values to the stars, to the planets, to the moon, distances and sizes that are inferred from other inferences in order to make it all work. And for hundreds of years, the world's smartest mathematicians have taken observations from the ground, the same observations you and I can make. They've concocted a model that is very much internally consistent in so many ways. And it's so internally consistent that there's no way for the average man, well, I shouldn't say no way, there are very few ways for the average man to submit these ideas and concepts to any external scrutiny. Right? So how are you going to personally send up a rocket and go measure the distance between the Earth and the moon, right? How are you personally going to go up in a rocket and sample the atmosphere to determine how much of a vacuum it is up there, or how much temperature it is, or how much plasma there is, or anything? So these claims and these inferences are stacked and put further and further away from the capabilities of the average man, such that now we have an entire priesthood of astrophysicists and astronomers who are able to dictate on their terms what the universe should be and how, by extension, it actually is. The cosmic distance ladder. The idea that not only that we are heliocentric within the solar system, but that the distances and the sizes of these objects, and the very fact that these objects occupy some kind of spatial geometry, and that the Earth itself we reside on is embedded within a space, is based off of the same observations that you and I make from the very same backyard. Totally serious.
I have about a couple weeks and I'll be going back to Alaska, and I do have a friend that's going to be visiting me for about 5 days during the time I'm there, who has a 1200 millimeter camera lens with absolutely insane zoom, and he's made some of his own observations that are pretty crazy. But I want to take some photos of things. It's going to take time, though. Like, he's only going to be there for 5 days, so it needs to be scheduled perfectly along with weather, so that way we're not dealing with any like heavy weather. We need clear skies, There's also he has a infrared camera, but it doesn't have the best zoom. It's pretty good, but for what we're trying to take pictures of, it just doesn't have the clarity to make out the image.
I've got a pretty good one. I just live in a shitty area because of the humidity. I can do a 600 millimeter zoom at about 27 megapixels at 930 nanometer infrared. It gives me extreme reach, but I can only reach so far as the wall of humidity allows. So it kind of sucks. It's about 30 miles on an average day during the spring and summer.
I don't know a ton about optical zoom, but other technologies that are used for viewing longer distances, yeah. Optical zoom, I'm not the keenest on. I took like a digital photography class when I was in like high school for a year and a half or so.
Okay.
That's about as much as I know.
One of the biggest problems is, once you get past like having a very decent lens, you got a good aperture, good reach, a decent enough sensor. It's your environment. It's always your environment that will confound it. You're going to run into issues where just light will not propagate through the medium that you're peering through, depending where you are, what time of day, time of season it is. The contrast is another issue. Contrast is a big problem. especially in infrared where everything is in grayscale.
Haze, I don't know the technical term for it, but the amount of haze that's viewed over distance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let me see if I can find
the air is very violent. And the further you get to the surface, the more violent it becomes, because you have the off-gassing, you have the evaporation of flora, right? I mean, like plants are breathing, and moisture is evaporating and condensing, and that's really what's going to attenuate much of everything you see, and will defeat infrared every time. And so the best infrared is done in rather arid climates. Now, if you can go to cold, frozen, arid climates, a high desert, that's golden. And I think even colder climates offer an advantage. You know, like where you've gone in Alaska there, like what you showed. I mean, absolutely beautiful imagery, nice and stable, long distance, very clear. You're low to the ground, you're looking up to the peak of a mountain, and you can see the top that should not be visible. At least, I mean, the top segment should only be visible. You can see all the way down.
Did I post photos in side chat, like actively just now for you guys, or no?
Check.
Pretty sure the top of that mountain should be like 10,000 feet below the horizon, right, Bossman?
If you're going just by curvature, it should be like 14,000 plus feet below the horizon due to curvature.
That's even better. I thought the top like 6,000 feet should be visible, but not even that.
You can compare with the two photos that I sent. One of like, I would say, let's say average 60 miles away. I don't know exactly, compared to the 229 miles away. And when you look at the point, I sent the photos twice on accident. My phone was being stupid. Sorry.
Dude, man.
Wait, did someone delete those other photos I had too that were up there? Hold on. I had two more photos in there. I'll post them side by side again here. 1 second. First photo 229 miles away. Second photo, let's just say average is 60. I don't know if it's between 50 and 70 miles. You can see that the entirety of the isthmus is just as visible. Actually, there's less visibility in the closer photo because you're closer to trees and stuff that obstruct your view from the viewpoint. So, but you can take judgment and use common sense, and you can see the isthmus is still visible in both photos. Both peaks, Denali and I don't know the name of the peak that is left to it, are visible, and even the peaks beyond that are visible. None of that, like not even like they look the same. You can swipe side to side, and literally see if I just expanded the photo that's further away a little bit more, overlaid it so the size is matched, you'd be able to see the same exact points. There's nothing missing, not even a little bit.
This is. Thank you. Oh my gosh, dude. I know we've been talking about this for like almost an hour, and I'm just like, DJ, my brother, you still there, man? Like,
DJ's seen all this.
added
DJ's
this to the library.
Yeah, DJ's the one that gave me librarian and gave me permissions.
Holy shit. DJ, this is a new observation for me.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's a badass observation, right?
This is the first time it's been presented, and Dossman has done an exceptional job. I really need to sit down like this weekend and just crunch the numbers. I need to verify it for myself. You know, I trust Dossman. I trust that you've done a thorough job just from the looks of it, and I'm not going to find any discrepancies. I'm still going to do it though because that's how I am.
Oh, of course you should be, but I wish you luck on finding discrepancies. You're not gonna. I went through, because here's the thing. I went through in my mind every argument that a glober would have against me over the past almost 13 years that I've been a flat earther. I was raised a flat earther, hit a point in my life where I wasn't for a while.
Yeah.
Like I purposely rejected it because I wanted to prove my parents wrong. Essentially, I'm not going to get into it, but
I've met folks like you before. I've met flat earther people that were raised as such, even in the 80s. It's rare, but it happens. Yep.
yeah,
It's true.
and I thought I was better than that, but actually, like I was brought back to it because of physics specifically is what brought me back to it. I can talk to you personally about that later, but yeah, I don't know. I answered every question. I took into the account of the distance in longitude and latitude. I took both, and it's technically, if you're going just by latitude, it's 226 miles, but because of the angle I was looking at it it was roughly 13 degrees north that I was looking, on a compass. So given the longitude as well as the latitude, it adds up to 229 miles line of sight, like in a direct straight line. That's why I also did the satellite image with the line drawn from the 2 points to kind of like give better perspective. I don't know. I took everything into account, the measurements of the weather, the heights, the height of the object, the height of the observer, the time, the date. I took the coordinates. I took low tide into effect as well. Like everything and I just wanted to make sure I couldn't even have an argument like with somebody about it. I'm just like, here, read through this and prove me wrong.
Can you provide the actual date and time? Are you willing to do that?
Yeah.
I'm looking through your post on Pickle Minds. I don't see it.
June 2nd. It's two just below the screenshot of Apple Maps. View foot height 12 feet. June 2nd, 2026 at 2 p.m. Sorry, I should say
screenshot.
I should put 1400. It wasn't 2 a.m. It was 1400. It was p.m.
I'm on Pickled Minds right now. I don't see the date and time.
Oh, it might not be in there. Let me add it.
Yeah, please do. I mean, this is one of the best white swans for flat Earth. Fuck the black swan. It's all white swans. Flat Earth
You
are
can
all white swans.
There's other photos like mine of the same exact viewpoint, the same exact perspective of the same mountain that have been taken at 100 miles, 179 miles, 220. Even an observation from the same point that I was at was taken a few years ago. It was just taken at a different tide, a different date, different time,
What's interesting is I'm looking at one of these, the main image you shared. You can see the tree line, the angular size of the tree line, and then you see in the next image the tree line up close, the actual trees, and you can see further down the base of the mountain.
Well, here's the thing,
it doesn't change angular size.
There is elevation difference between the land, and so when you look out and you see the edge of the water, when you see the shoreline, that shoreline below the tree line is my dogs are going nuts. That's 88 miles. 88.0 to the shoreline. Okay, hold on. I gotta see what my dogs are going nuts. Somebody's here or something. Hey, calm down.
Dog-ass. Dag-ass, dog-ass. I never learned how to say it, man. We've been friends for years, bro. He's like, refraction. Hey, DOS man, fuck you. It's refraction. Earth looks so flat because refraction is everywhere we see.
See, but I took that into effect too. I took the globe model's equation for refraction and the science behind it. That's why the date and time is needed as well, so that people can do that math for themselves. All that stuff's recorded through, even recorded publicly through weather stations, through weather buoys. All that information is public information that you can take the date and time and test for yourself. You can go do the measurements yourself and test for yourself. The thing is, when you take the active measurement, you can't get refraction immediately. Expected refraction needs to be taken the day after when you've taken all the measurements and combined them together. You know, no one could take those measurements instantly, but I employ people to go and do these observations for themselves. I invited somebody in this chat to come with me in a couple weeks who was in such denial of it. But at the same time, I've also invited my personal friends to come and experience it for themselves. I just don't know what to say to the two deniers. Like, it's hard for me to... They get very emotional about it, and then I'm just like, dude, it's just observations in science. There's nothing I could tell you that's going to make you go, oh, you're right, I'm a flat earther now. You're going to have to see it for yourself.
Man, I want to go to Alaska, but I don't want to be hassled to like carry a 44 Magnum with me everywhere I go to protect me from animals.
Oh, well, you don't really got to be scared of brown bears, but I have had too many run-ins with moose, dude.
Yeah.
Like a female moose, most terrifying thing ever. A male moose, you don't really have to worry about. A female moose, baby, like your best bet is to find a tree and play Ring Around the Rosie, because you are not running away. They have 22 to like 27-pound hooves that they swing faster. Like imagine a 22-pound sledgehammer being swung faster than any human could naturally swing a sledgehammer and hitting you. That shit will rip you in. Sorry to cuss. That will rip you in half. Like,
yeah.
One hit, you're dead, dude. If not, you're getting stomped on. They trample you. They literally tap dance on you. They will stomp you into the ground. Like, female moose are no joke. A gun is only going to help you if you land your shots, dude. Like, honestly, find a big tree and play Ring Around the Rosie. That's going to be a better bet than even shooting the damn thing. A brown bear? Stay away from its fishing hole. Other than that, you're not going to really have any issues with brown bears. They'll leave. A black bear is much more dangerous than a brown bear.
Really, man? Like, I used to live in New Jersey. We had black bears right in the fucking dumpster at the end of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
We thought they were like skittish. I used to go out there and like yell at them and chase them away for fun.
I do not know why.
Maybe Jersey's different than Alaska. Just more people.
Well, there's less people. Yeah, there's a lot less people in Alaska. There, like, you can drive. Yeah, I don't know. Every single house you go to, you can pretty much go out the back door and be in the wilderness, unless you're in Fairbanks, middle of Fairbanks, or if you're in like Anchorage. You know, Anchorage, I think, is the biggest city. So, and Anchorage is not even as big as most cities in the lower 48, or just.
Hey, do you know the flat earther named Lanolin? Lanolin. He lives up in Alaska, and he did a freaking laser test that's to die for, like recently. And DJ's got all the goods on that. I don't know if DJ can talk right now.
Lanolin?
Yeah.
No, I've never. I'm just looking through my own personal history. I've never spoken with him personally. Maybe in here I've spoken with him, but
maybe. I mean, he's I think he's in your same age group too, and he knows a shit ton about optics. I mean, he knows a lot about optics, but more from like a device mechanical standpoint. Film.
Cameras. I know what you're saying.
Not
I'm
like
25. I don't know
physical wave optics through the atmosphere, but like, yeah.